Good afternoon. Today is January 29th. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee bill hearings. First up, we have Chair Corman. Welcome to Ways and Means. Whoop, whoop. And is there anyone you want to bring up with you, or you just want me to call? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I know what it sounds like when someone says to me down upstairs, this is a simple bill, but I swear this is a simple bill. I'm really riding off the coattails of Chair Atterbury and Speaker Jones last year as part of the Speaker's. Can I second in here?
We'll take it.
Last year, as part of the Speaker's decency agenda, Chair Atterbury carried legislation related to anti-bias training for our school employees. I found out in the fall that, oddly enough, school board members are not considered school employees for these purposes. So this bill just closes that loophole, frankly, and requires the school board members to go through the same type of training as we've already told our tens of thousands of school employees to go through. So that is the bill, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Abby Snyder, Director of Government Relations for the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and its agencies, here today in support of HB 324, which expands on Chair Atterbury's bill. This bill also, as we heard, requires the training that is already being provided for all school staff to now be expanded to county school boards once per term. We also believe this is necessary for the purpose of cultural awareness and the reduction of implicit bias. It's no secret that anti-Semitism and all other forms of hate continue to plague our schools. Just last week, there was an incident at Towson High School, the school where our executive director, Howard Libet's daughter, attends, and there was a swastika drawn in the bathroom there. It's imperative that our leaders in the school system are equipped with the knowledge to hold conversations to explain to students why this behavior is unacceptable. By expanding the anti-bias training requirement to our county school boards, we're ensuring that those who are tasked with the general control and oversight of our school systems and educational interests are also equipped with the proper understanding of how to handle implicit bias events using evidence-based guidelines. For these reasons, we support HB 324 and hope that you will move favorably. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cherie Branson. I am the second vice president of the Montgomery County NAACP. I'm here today to support and urge a favorable report on the County Board Member Anti-Bias Training Act of 2025. As you may know, the NAACP has been a leader in educational equity for over 100 years. Our branch was formed in 1937 as a result of a lawsuit brought by Black teachers in Montgomery County demanding equal pay with white teachers. Since that time, we have been in the forefront of requesting, demanding, working with others to achieve educational equity in our schools. Our branch does support this bill, supported the previous bill because of our commitment to racial equity in schools. However, our commitment to the recognition and elimination of implicit and explicit bias would not be complete without the requirement for anti-bias training for Board of Education members. They are responsible for initiating, approving, and causing the implementation of most of the curriculum materials that are used in the classrooms and the policies that govern the management and administration of the schools. Therefore, we believe that the county boards of education should not be excluded from the requirement to receive anti-bias training. Each Maryland public school must be a place that can proudly say, hate has no home here. Anti-bias training must cover both those responsible for the curriculum and the classroom. We urge a favorable report on this bill, and we stand ready to help you in any way we can. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the committee. I'm Deborah Miller, the Maryland Director of Government and Community Relations for the JCRC of Greater Washington. As many of you know, the JCRC represents over 100 social service agencies, schools, and synagogues in the region, and we have a very robust education division which focuses on combating school-based anti-Semitism, advocating on behalf of Jewish students, families, and employees in promoting safe, hate-free learning environments for all students. And I'm here today in support of House Bill 324, which would require the school board members to undergo anti-bias training. And as Delegate Kaur explained, that was a loophole that now is being closed because the previous passage from the General Assembly for school employees did not include the school board members. Dramatic spikes in anti-Semitism over the last several years has been well documented and shows no signs of abating. According to the ADL's latest report, Maryland ranks 7th in terms of the greatest number of anti-Semitic incidents in the country in 2023, with a 211% increase from the previous year, and a vast majority of those incidents happened in Montgomery County Public Schools. It is our experience working extensively with MCPS that educators often do not have a deep understanding of who exactly Jews are, what anti-Semitism is, and they have a limited cultural, many of them, competency about Jewish practice, Jewish history, and the importance of Israel to most Jews. The JCRC strongly believes that school board members should have a baseline competency in all forms of hatred, including anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism. This knowledge would help schools respond swiftly and effectively to all bias incidents, so we therefore also ask for a favorable report on House Bill 324.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, Josh Boki is here in favor. Can I bring him up?
Of course.
And then we have virtual who is favorable, and then we'll see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Josh Boki, Frederick County resident, also a parent of a public high school student. Also would urge and request a favorable report on this bill. In addition to echo and support of the comments that have already been made here up at the panel today, I would just say, as a parent, as a resident, how important it is that our board members of education receive the same training, anti-bias training, that is consistent with the public school employees. Often, as each of you know, the public school systems are sometimes, if not the largest employers of the jurisdiction, one of the largest employers. And Frederick County Public School System is the second largest employer by far. And I would just hope that, again, as a resident, that that board members are upholding professional standards, inclusivity, and set up an environment where all students can be welcome and included in the school system. This bill seems to take that next logical step for that. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. And do we have Lauren Pruitt with us? Okay, whenever you're ready, 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Pruitt, and I'm the legal director at Free State Justice. HB 324 addresses an urgent need in our educational system to fill the gap that exposes vulnerable students to harmful and discriminatory policies. No student should have to navigate an educational environment that does not recognize their identity or appreciate their unique challenges. Unfortunately, county board members may unintentionally perpetuate biases that have dire consequences without proper training. This is especially true for LGBTQ+ youth, especially students of color and those with disabilities, students who already bear the burden of existing systemic inequities. Research shows that supportive school environments significantly reduce rates of suicide and mental health issues among LGBTQ+ youth. Additionally, studies indicate that LGBTQ+ affirming schools lead to lower rates of bullying, not just among LGBTQ+ students, but across the entire student body. HB 324 aims to create inclusive educational settings where all students can thrive by promoting awareness and understanding through the anti-bias training. It empowers county board members to implement policies that uphold the dignity and safety of every student rather than allowing implicit biases to guide their decision-making. When we foster an environment of acceptance and support, we protect the most vulnerable, particularly those who lack access to supportive spaces outside of school. By mandating anti-bias training for county board members, we are taking a significant step toward a more equitable, safe, and inclusive educational environment for all students, regardless of their identity or background. I strongly encourage you to issue a favorable report for for HB 324. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? I told them all to put their buttons on. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being here. We do have one unfavorable, Bruce Bariano.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, Bruce Bariano here on behalf of Washington County. My client asked me to testify, just had some concerns about the bill. Maybe I should have signed up favorable with amendments, but kindly, if you look on page 3 of the bill, there are 2 points that I was asked to raise. Number one is a clarification in the new language lines 4 through 9 on page 2 of the bill, particularly lines 7 through 9, where it says the training shall be conducted separately from a public school employee training. They feel it's not clear whether that is just physically separately or whether the subject matter and the scope of the training should be separate as well. Some of you may disagree, but I think that's a point that could and should be clarified in terms of the content of the training in that regard. And then the only other point which my client asked me to bring to the committee's attention is that this is an unfunded mandate on the school boards. I do not know what the cost would be for such additional training and everything. Very, very respectfully, I think it's not helpful and disingenuous to the members of this committee for fiscal services to just say there is no financial effect and school systems can comply with existing resources. Fiscal services is supposed to provide you with information. That's all I'm trying to say. And they're not providing you with information. I respectfully, Madam Chair, don't know what the cost would be, but there would be. And I think that would be helpful for the committee to know county to county. Some counties, boards of eds probably are larger than others in terms of membership. So I'm sorry I can't add any information in that regard. But those are the only 2 points. I personally think that the bill could be clarified a little better, as I indicated, but it's the will of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the comments, Mr. Bariano, because it brought me back to thinking when I was a board member for 12 years, and certainly as a member of any board of education, the MABE, Maryland Association of Boards of Eds, that have professional developments, et cetera, and I would consider really rethinking the last concern and maybe offering an amendment to say that this will be through MABE because they can modify their process as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I just wanted to, thank you. Just want to bring these points to your attention.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you, Madam
very
Chair,
much.
members of the committee.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 324, House Bill 150. Is Dr. Cook here? Oh, they're virtual. Oh, okay. Okay. Is she here?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, so we have Dr. Cook and Tara Phillips presenting. Dr. Cook, I just want to take this opportunity to say a quick thank you for your services as our Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Early Childhood within the Maryland State Department of Education. If you don't know, Dr. Cook was instrumental in help us get our House Bill 1441 passed last year, which was personally important to me and very important to all of the members here on this committee. So we just want to wish you well in your new adventures, and this is us seeing you probably, you know, maybe not for the last time, but in this capacity for the last time. So with that, go right ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Atterbury. I really appreciate that. That was unexpected, and it's been a pleasure to serve the state of Maryland. I'm here today to speak to the committee with my colleague, Tara Phillips, who's the Executive Director for the Division of Early Childhood. We are representing the Office of Child Care within the Division of Early Childhood at the Maryland State Department of Education. Thank you again for the opportunity to discuss staffing requirements for first aid and CPR certification in child care facilities serving school-age children. This amendment stems from our school-age work group, which examined the unique needs of school-age programs. The work group was composed of child care stakeholders who recommended adjusting the first aid CPR certifications requirements to address these programs' distinct operational needs while maintaining strong safety standards. I would be remiss if I didn't inform this committee that this proposal actually went through the full promulgation process and got stopped because the current ratio is in statute, but we did take this proposal to the Office of Child Care Advisory Council and received full support from that council. Families across Maryland rely on child care providers not only for infant, toddler, and pre-K, but also for older school-age children. Many school-age programs operate after the regular school day is over, supporting working families who need reliable, safe, and developmentally appropriate environments. However, staffing shortages make it difficult for these programs to meet current first aid and CPR certification requirements. Under the existing statute, providers must have one first aid and CPR certified staff member for every 20 children. While this ratio is crucial for younger children at higher risk for accidents and medical emergencies, it creates unintended challenges for programs serving school-age children who typically require a different approach to ensure safety. The amendment before you today seeks to remove the fixed statutory requirement and instead allow the necessary first aid and CPR certification ratios to be determined by regulation. This will enable the Maryland State Department of Education to better tailor requirements for different age groups while preserving robust safety standards. Specifically, the 1-to-20 ratio would remain for infants, toddlers, and pre-K, and shift to 1-to-30 for school-age programs, aligning with similar requirements in other educational settings. Previously, we proposed this 1-to-30 ratio for school-age programs, but as I said before, we were informed that we would need to modify the statute, which is a 1-to-20 ratio, and this would require legislative action. Removing the fixed ratio will help providers recruit and retain staff that they need without compromising children's health and safety. On behalf of the Office of Child Care and the families we serve, I respectfully urge you to support this amendment. It will sustain vital after-school programs while maintaining appropriate safety standards for school-age children. Thank you again for your time and consideration today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and Tara Phillips, my colleague, will also support in answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay. Is Ms. Phillips, she's here for questions only? Are you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for bringing the bill. My concern is, one is I'm a proponent of more providers, teachers, bus drivers, anyone who's servicing kids, particularly when they are the only adult around or close by, because in any kind of an emergency situation, seconds matter. So I'm concerned about taking it out because in saying that, if we take it out, are we saying that that part is no longer important as far as the 1 in 20? Because it's not differentiating between the school age. I would actually rather see it differentiated if that's the way that, and the recommendation that we think that we need to go, see it differentiated in legislation versus taking it out, because we do consider it important. And I think anyone, whether it's, and I well understand, I have a sub-pool bill myself for this very, very this very, very important thing. And just having that first aid and CPR certification, there are many places where you can get it for free. You can get it for free online. There are certainly many ways that we can get, but I think we need more and not less. And to keep that importance, I would rather see it stay in law as far as the ratios, but that's just my personal opinion as far as concerns. Do you have any concerns along those lines?
Delegate Miller, I think that's an excellent question. Our goal is always to ensure the health and safety and well-being of children, as you know. The 1-to-30 ratio works well in school-age settings because they're in a group size of 30. And so one staff member would always be in that group, they would have the first aid CPR. So there's always 2 staff members with that group size of 30, but one of the staff members has to have first aid CPR certification at all times. So all the children would have accessibility to a staff member with first aid CPR training. And so if there was that nuanced approach, sorry, it's hard to read what's going on in the room virtually, but yeah, if there was that differentiated approach, that would be viable and meet our needs, but wanted to recommend that it be placed in regulation so that it could be easily adjusted if necessary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Delegate Plakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Dr. Cook, I'll echo our chair's thanks for your service. So I have a question, I guess, in terms of the fiscal note mentions that the department plans to bring your regulations back forward. Do you have an estimated timeline as to when should this part of statute get repealed, when those regulations would come forward and when they'd be finalized? Because I do have a little bit of concern about basically the growing pains or what happens before the regulations get finalized.
Yes, so we already have the regulation written. It's ready to go. All the board memos have been complete. So as soon as this were to pass into legislation, we could bring it before the state board, and it would go through the normal promulgation process. The current drafted regulations already went to the Office of Child Care Advisory Council. We tend to submit all proposed regulations to that body before it goes to the state board. So we would be able to accelerate that because we've already done that. So it would take as long as the promulgation process takes, and we know that can be varied.
Okay, so during that time, though, I guess between repeal and the new regulation going into effect, so would that mean that there is no safety requirement in that period of time?
No, the safety requirement would stay in place, and it would remain a 1-to-20 ratio in all child care settings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you both very much. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 150. Before we move on, I would like to state the following, which is for anyone who is listening to us, watching us, and for those who are joining us here. I stated this yesterday, and I'm going to restate it again, that this committee has a policy of sponsor-only testimony when there are House bill reintroductions that are the same that we have previously heard during this term for local bills and for Senate bill exact cross files. The Information Technology Office clarified for us that the MyMGA system does not allow for someone to sign up and select none for sponsor-only oral testimony bills, but does allow for written testimony. So if there is a sponsor-only bill, you can submit written testimony that simply says, I oppose or I support this bill. For all sponsor-only oral testimony bills, we accept unlimited written testimony, and we do not time sponsors when they testify, although we reserve the right to time sponsors should they exceed their privilege. And with that being said, I'm going to call my bill 161, which is sponsor only because it has been heard and passed out of the House twice. May I begin, Madam Chair? This mic is much louder than our mics. Okay, that's interesting. Well, good afternoon, committee members, the Ways and Means Committee, the best committee in the Maryland General Assembly. I am Delegate Vanessa Atterbury, and I'm here to ask for your favorable report on House Bill 161. This bill is not unfamiliar to the majority of you, but it will be new to some of you who have just joined us, and I'm hoping that the third time is a charm. We passed this bill out of the House twice during this term so far. So I want to be very clear that this bill is about ensuring the health and the safety of all of our children in all of our schools, regardless of where you live, regardless of your race, and regardless of your gender identity. What this bill does, I will just hit the highlights. It requires that each local jurisdiction establish a comprehensive health education framework to include the following: healthy promotion, how to have a healthy lifestyle, mental and emotional health, substance and abuse prevention, family life and human sexuality, gender identity and sexual orientation, safety and violence prevention, safe and appropriate social media and internet usage, healthy eating, and disease prevention and control. I do want to take a step back and say, currently, already in the state of Maryland, all local jurisdictions are required under the health education curriculum to do all but three of these things. All but three of these things are supposed to be happening in each of your jurisdictions. The three that we have added: health promotion, creating a healthy lifestyle, gender and sexual orientation, and safe and appropriate social media and internet usage. The reason and the purpose for this bill is because not all of the jurisdictions are doing all of these things. So let me jump back into what the bill does. So each local board will create an age-appropriate curriculum. In developing that curriculum, a committee will be established that will include not just educators and health experts, but members of your local community. So each of your local communities will be reflected in that curriculum that's developed. In addition, we are maintaining in this legislation the current practice that if you would like to opt out of the family life or opt out of the human sexuality topic, then a parent can. So for instance, when my son, my oldest, went to the 6th grade last year, I got an email. Your child is about to take human sexuality. You have the option of opting out. Should you opt out, he will be offered another course in the health area. I did not opt out for my child. You cannot opt out of HIV and AIDS prevention because that is federally mandated. And so that is essentially what the bill does. I will end by saying there is a good amount of testimony, written testimony by public health experts and other interest groups. And the public health experts, pediatricians and nurses, urge that this is the appropriate thing to do, because what we don't want, and as parents you know, what we don't want is our children learning about body parts or learning about human sexuality or learning about relationships from social media, from YouTube, from, whatever they're watching on the internet, Snapchat, I don't know, all these things, but whatever they're watching, that's not where we want our children to get their information. What we also don't want to happen, which is in this bill, but unfortunately people don't focus on this part of the bill, how our kids should interact when they are online, when they are playing Fortnite and talking to who they think is another 13-year-old girl, but it's really a 49-year-old man in Wisconsin. Okay, that is not what we want. Them being asked to send pictures, and they do, and then being threatened if they don't send more pictures. These are real life things that happen. Exchanging phone numbers, saying where they live. We want to keep our kids safe, and we want to keep them protected, and that is why I think we should pass this bill for a third time, and I feel in my bones the Senate is going to pass it. So with that, I will stand for any questions, and again, ask for a favorable report.
Any questions from committee members? Looks like there's quite a few. Any real questions from committee members? Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you, Madam Chairman. So the bill, we have discussed the bill several times. So I just want to drill down on one thing. So the family and human sexuality curriculum element, consistent with your testimony, that's already required, correct? That's something that for a curricular standpoint is already required for county boards of education to have age appropriate, and I appreciate you saying that, and it's in the legislation. Age appropriate is a very key element of this for many of us. They're already required to do family life and human sexuality, correct?
Under the Maryland Comprehensive Health Education Framework, the family life and human sexuality component does exist, and they are supposed to be doing it, but it is not happening in all jurisdictions.
Okay. I guess my question, I think in all honesty, the only reason myself and probably others may have ever voted against the bill is because, as I read it, parents are able to opt their children out of the family life and human sexuality identified curriculum now. There's a process. It says even in the bill that there has to be a process to allow parents to get enough notice of that and to opt out. But that doesn't include the other identified, it's section 3, Roman numeral 5 on the second page of the bill, the gender identity and sexual orientation curriculum, which is, I would think, by listing it separately means that it's defined differently than just family life and human sexuality. It's not encompassed within family life and human sexuality because it's specifically delineated as maybe a separate course or a separate curricular subject. There's no provision within the bill to allow for the parents to opt out of that portion. Is that still the case?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's really the only, as well my friend, that's really the only substantive difference or discussion for many of us is there are parents out there who, have the right or would have the right to opt their children out of family life and human sexuality, but would not have their right to opt their children out of the other defined gender identity and sexual orientation component. And is there what's the rationale? And there may be a good rationale, but what's the rationale for differentiating those two aspects of things?
Well, we really called it out in the bill. We differentiated family life and human sexuality and gender identity and sexual orientation because in the current comprehensive health framework, it is all encapsulated under family life and human sexuality. But for instance, Carroll County has removed all instruction related to gender identity and sexual orientation from their curriculum. And they actually have created 3 options that you can do. Their own option where they remove that and some other things, or you can do the full curriculum, or you can opt out. And so we really want to urge local jurisdictions to teach a comprehensive health curriculum. You can't pick and choose what you would like to do. The regulations state under family life and human sexuality, you should be teaching gender identity and sexual orientation, but Carroll County is choosing not to do that.
Okay, so if theoretically then a school system said within our, I was looking at the terms right here, within our family life and human sexuality curricular module or lessons, that's where we're including the gender identity and sexual orientation component. Under the law as I see, or under the bill as I see, the parent would have the right to opt out of that. If you said, hey, we're teaching gender identity and sexual orientation comprehensively as part of our family life, I keep screwing it up, family life and human sexuality, the bill says that a parent can opt out of family life and human sexuality.
Correct.
So if one is subsumed within the other, the opt-out provision still exists.
You are technically correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you.
Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Chair. All right, I have a couple of questions, and one, Delegate Buckle did ask the one, but I just wanted to clarify the gender identity and sexual orientation. Usually the family life topics aren't pushed down as far, so is that starting in like kindergarten, first grade? Do you know where they start talking about those topics? Because that was another concern that was brought up by families.
So in kindergarten, and I'm looking at the current framework. So in kindergarten, what's required is you identify that family is a group of people that support each other. You identify that there are different types of families, single parents, same gender, intergenerational, cohabitating, adoptive, foster, etc. You recognize a range of ways people identify and express their gender. You recognize it's important to treat people of all gender identities and expressions with dignity and respect. So that's in kindergarten.
Okay. All right, so it starts down in kindergarten, okay. And then my second part was about the age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. So if a county board decides that it is not developmentally or age appropriate to teach certain topics down into either the kindergarten or first grade level, what happens then? Or like if because they have to report that to MSD, they have to report that to the department, it says that in the bill. So if MSDE determines that they don't agree with the county's determination on what's age appropriate for that county, or if they don't agree with how they are teaching it in the age appropriate manner, what happens then?
So MSDE, although I don't believe that they exercise this option, does have the ability to withhold funds from jurisdictions. And I'm going to look at our lovely Alistair, okay, and he's giving me the nod that that is correct. So that is an option that they have, albeit they do not exercise that jurisdiction.
Okay.
I mean, that option.
So that would be the option that, okay. And then there were a couple interesting opposition. One was from Howard County Board of Education, and one was actually from MSDE. They're actually currently looking at the framework and reviewing the framework.
So I would say, one, kudos to MSDE. After 2 years of us doing this bill, they thought, maybe we should take a look at it.
Okay.
But I don't think that addresses enforcement of it. And two, Howard County, my county, so thanks for bringing that up.
I'm sorry?
No, they love local control. They don't like you
Yes.
telling them, what time to turn the lights on. So they oppose anything if you are suggesting they should do anything.
Right, and that, they did definitely say about local control. One of the other points they did bring up was the redundancy and a little bit of a contradiction when it comes around HIV and AIDS, because the part that's mandated is in under like the disease prevention part, but then there is also parts that are in the family life and human sexuality. So is your intent that they would opt out of all of it, no matter where the topic's covered, or still only under the disease prevention?
Only under the disease prevention that's in the family life.
Okay, because yeah, they were a little bit concerned about the clarification. And then my last point, and I thank you so much, my last point is the Supreme Court has recently agreed to hear the case out of Montgomery County where they said that they feel that it's unconstitutional about not giving an opt-out down through the K-5 curriculum. So if a Supreme Court decision is upheld, then we would change the law, change the bill, it would go through process. Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, thank you for bringing the bill forward, as always. I I just want to get some clarity around some comments from Delegate Buckle. When we say in Section 3, the Comprehensive Health Education Framework shall at a minimum include the following topics, that doesn't mean necessarily full subject matter, right, like whole curriculum written around each topic, but rather how the topics, that these topics are introduced, and that sometimes they might even mix with each other. Is that fair?
Correct.
Wonderful. And when we look at gender identity and sexual orientation, isn't it true that technically we all have a gender identity and sexual orientation, whether we're straight or gay or trans or cis or whatever, we all have a sexuality and a gender?
Yes,
Yep.
correct.
And for the sake of why it would be so important that gender identity and sexual orientation not have an opt-out provision built into it, would you agree that part of that is because gender identity and sexual orientation, part of that conversation can land under mental and emotional health section of the bill. It can end up under health promotion section of the bill. It can end up under safety and violence prevention, especially when it comes to relationships, as you were talking about horror stories of relationships. It can end up under the discussion around safe and appropriate social media, as we see constant bullying of especially young LGBTQ plus kids,
Yes.
that it can end up inside of that topic. So it's important to call out gender identity and sexual orientation for that reason and make sure there is not an opt-out provision, because otherwise a parent could essentially opt out of the entire health education curriculum if we don't call this out directly. Is that
Yes,
fair?
correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the chance, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, that ends the bill hearing on House Bill 161.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Madam Chair. While Madam Chair is returning to her seat, I will call Delegate Shalega, House Bill 156. This is a sponsor-only bill, so you can proceed as soon as you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. It's an honor to be here with you today. For the record, my name is Delegate Kathy Shalega, and I'm proud to be here to introduce this bill once again this year. This is a very simple bill. House Bill 156 simply says that high school varsity and junior varsity girls' sports are just for biological girls. It's that simple. It does not limit any other sports, but it says that girls that have worked hard to be able to compete at that level will be assured that they won't be discriminated against, and they will be playing against other females. This is a common sense bill. The public opinion on this has shifted every year. It gets more and more and more support. It's an 80-20 issue. In your testimony, you have a Gonzalez poll, the poll that is conducted a couple times a year. The one that was done a couple weeks ago had a question put in it, and it asked almost the identical language of the bill. Do you think that biological males should be able to compete in junior varsity and varsity girls sports against girls? 76% of Marylanders said no, that girls sports, JV varsity, should be just for girls. An overwhelming 83% of African Americans agree with this topic. I was shocked that number has grown every year, but I think Republicans were in the 90s, you won't be surprised. But African Americans were the second largest group that said, yes, these sports should be for girls. This is why Title IX was created. Never did I think that I would be fighting to get back the rights given to women and girls almost 53 years ago. Speaking up shouldn't be hard, but it is. Women must be assured that they are competing safely against other girls. Cancel culture and the vitriol from the opposition has been tough, it's been strong, And it's frightened people to speak out for girls to ensure that the playing field is fair. But those folks, they talk to me, and lots of folks will say, Kathy, you're right. And I want to come forward, and my daughter wants to come forward, but we're afraid of the backlash. That is changing. It is getting much, much less. By allowing males into female sports, we're actually discriminating against biological girls. By allowing males into female sports, you're telling girls they don't have the right to single-sex competition. And it's not just in Maryland that this issue has gained popularity. Across the country, the New York Times did a recent poll in the last month, and it says almost the same thing. So I competed in sports. I was an athlete when I was younger, and I remember I played soccer, and in high school, there was no girls' varsity soccer team. And so my freshman year in Virginia, where I went to, the first high school I went to, they started a varsity girls soccer team, not JV and varsity, just varsity. And I made the team, and I played on that team. And then I moved to Maryland my junior year, and Maryland didn't have girls soccer. So we're talking about in the 70s. Look how far we've come. There were no scholarship opportunities for me, and there were very few opportunities for girls. We've come a long way, and we're not about to turn it back. So last weekend, I got to go to visit my little granddaughter's 10, and she plays soccer. And so I went to her indoor soccer game. And so I'm the mom of boys. I raised 2 boys, and I was recruited to be a soccer coach for them. And I coached all the way through middle school. So I go to my first, granddaughter soccer game, maybe my second. Anyway, the differences couldn't be more stark. After coaching boys at the same age, this 10 and 11-year-old, the boys are stronger, faster, and much more aggressive. And if there had been a boy on that field, he would have run circles around those girls. This isn't about excluding kids from sports. I think everyone should recreate and play sports, and I hope everyone here is doing that. I want all kids, I want all adults, everybody should be out there finding a sport they like to do, even if it's just walking and participating in that. At the same time, narrowly ensuring that JV and varsity girls sports are on a level playing field just for girls. So, as you know, the sponsor-only issue, I've spoken to the chair about it. I, certainly hope that we can change that in the future. But one of my big supporter groups, this isn't a Republican issue. It's an apolitical issue. So ICONS is a political group, is an apolitical group. It's an all-inclusive female organization of straight and gay women and the voice of female athletes nationally and internationally. They have former Olympians and NCAA champions. And they believe, and I do too, that women should thrive and succeed in sport without facing sex-based discrimination. We believe women deserve respect and fair competition equal to that of male athletes. ICON serves to elevate and empower female athletes on and off the field. We love sports. We're grateful for women who played for opportunities. The next generation of women and girls deserve the chance that we got. There are biological differences. We've been told, believe the science. I do believe the science. Males are faster, stronger, jump higher, and stronger because of the way that they are made. There is no outworking physical differences. That's a quote from a professional disc golfer who was an international champion, and she was devastated when she saw a transgender identifying male opponent to whom she lost. Not only do I have supporters from the female sports world, But as I told you before, African-American support has really grown. And I got an email from Doc Cheatham. I don't know, any of you know Doc Cheatham. He's a famous civil rights champion from Baltimore. He sent me an email and said, I'm really sorry that I can't be there. I support your same birth female sex for sports legislation. Would be an honor to testify. So I told him I would read his testimony and let you all know, and hopefully we can get him over to the Senate. And it's not just about ensuring fairness for girls, but a study found that 64% of girls, this is in 2019, quit sports by the time they were 16 or 17. And I think this could be demoralizing to girls who are competing at that level to know they can't outwork the physical differences. Right now, Maryland ranks 40 out of 50 for girls' participation in sports. It's 25.4%. That's from 2023 study. You have a lot of testimony in your file from lots of folks that wanted to come. There was a glitch in the system, so there was actually more testimony that did not make it. I'd like to tell you this morning I was on a radio station from the Delegate Hartman's district, Mike Bradley, and he had a woman, a rep from Delaware that's in the studio with him on Wednesdays, and we were talking about this issue, and she said, Kathy, my daughter plays volleyball in Delaware. And in 10th grade, this was a year or two ago, she and her team from Delaware went to Maryland to play a Maryland team. There was a boy on that team. She said he was very clearly a boy. He was taller and bigger. And they said to the Maryland team, hey, what's going on here? And they said, we have to allow him to play because of the rules in Maryland. And in volleyball, the net is lower for girls than boys. Why? Because boys can jump higher, because they're taller. And, so it is happening. Speaking of volleyball, there is a girl named Peyton McNabb. She was going to come testify here, but could, obviously was not at sponsor only. She's a high school volleyball champion. In September, she was struck in the head by a spiked ball during a volleyball game by a male on the opposing team. As a result, the sheer impact of the ball, I received a concussion and neck injury. I love sports, the camaraderie, the discipline. We learn so much from sports. I was always very aware of the possibility of injury during competitive play, but my experience on the court that day was different. The hit was so violent that I was knocked unconscious, laying in a fencing position for over 30 seconds. Years later, my body and mind are still recovering from the hit. I still suffer from partial paralysis on my right side, vision problems, cognitive issues, and constant headaches. So this is real, and this is happening. I'd also like to point you to the testimony by Riley Gaines. You may or may not have heard of her, but she's been a real champion in this issue, was an NCAA champion swimmer, and raced against Leah Thomas, who was a transgender identifying male, 6'3". She and he actually tied to the 100th of a second in her freestyle event, and they gave him the medal. They gave him the medal. She was told to sit down. So, there's other testimony in there, but I think this is not just about records. It's not just about scholarships. It's not just about those things, but it's also about the safety of our girls. And it's simple. We can pass this bill and we can make sure that all the girls in Maryland who are JV and varsity athletes are able to compete against biological girls. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take some questions.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 156. House Bill 118, Delegate Muir-Q North.
right. Okay. Madam Chair, may I begin or wait till the crowd dies down a little bit? Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and the esteemed members of my Ways and Means Committee. I'm Delegate Bernice Maricoux North, representing District 14, humbly coming before you today to offer testimony on House Bill 118, the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact. This compact was developed by the Council of State Governments, Department of Defense, and the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education Certification. And it presents an innovative solution that complements our work on the blueprint, as well as a direct benefit to military families and other families relocating to Maryland for new opportunities. This bill could also help diversify and strengthen Maryland's teaching workforce, which is pillar 2 of our Blueprint for Maryland's Future, high quality and diverse teachers and leaders. Now, licensed professionals can move from state to state and often struggle with obtaining licenses in a new state. For example, I myself as a lawyer had to move to Texas, and it took me 18 months to get my Texas license. 6 months later, I had an opportunity to come back to Maryland. So I understand what it's like to try to find a way to work in the area that you move to and change the license and how much of a financial burden that is on families. So this is why one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this bill, to help teachers come to Maryland and be a part of our workforce. Now, the bill is something that has been introduced last year as the reason why it's sponsor only, and answering the call to seek more diverse licensed teachers for our workforce. 1/3 of Maryland students are Black, but only 20% of Maryland's teachers are. And less than 30% of Maryland's teachers are teachers of color. As a national leader in education reform, Maryland is uniquely poised to attract licensed teachers from across the various compact states, which I'll mention in a minute, who are inspired by our transformative efforts to improve educational outcomes for our students. So by expanding access to high-quality educators from diverse backgrounds, this bill can provide the opportunity that helps our students benefit from the diverse teacher workforce that we're all striving to achieve through the blueprint. Look at what's happened already with conditional teachers. There was a briefing just last week about the fact that 60% of our conditional teachers are Black and brown. They want to come and work for our children that are occupying our schools and reflect the diversity that's so needed for our students. This can happen too by being part of the Interstate Compact. Now, Maryland continues to face significant challenges in staffing classrooms with licensed teachers. According to that same briefing that I referenced just last week on the 22nd, 1/3 new teachers hired in Maryland are not licensed before entering the classroom. That means 1 in 10 classrooms in our state are currently staffed by either a substitute or unlicensed teachers. And this is particularly concerning in high need and critical areas like special education and early childhood education, which are suffering even more shortages. And it's why there's conversations about collaborative times goals not being met and funding for it at risk. Now, the fiscal note is pretty good in laying out that it's really up to us on how we are involved in this compact. It's up to us to say that for teachers who are out of state, they'll need to pass performance-based assessment. This bill is really about giving us a seat at the table to make sure that we have the options to expand our teacher workforce. Now, this bill is not just about improving our teacher workforce and meeting our blueprint goals, but also helping our families become stronger in Maryland. Now, I want to thank the Black Caucus for making it a priority bill. I want to thank the co-sponsors who signed on early when I pre-filed it. And I also want to give a special shout out to my family, who's also here, my sister-in-law and my nephews, the youngest one who's cooing in the back, and my daughter. I promised them I would give them a shout out for this on their day off of school, for supporting this bill on education. Because with this bill, we're trying to streamline licensure for out-of-state teachers. And this is going to directly impact the pool of teachers that are going to come into this workforce and helping us meet the dire needs, as mentioned before in our briefings, for our Maryland teacher workforce. Now, 13 states are currently part of the Interstate Compact. Pennsylvania, Delaware, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon. So with Pennsylvania and Nevada as our nearby states, I think it's even more critical to make sure that we are a seat at the table and a part of this compact so we can remain competitive in the region. So I ask for your favorable report on House Bill 118. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 118. We are waiting on some joint members.
Okay.
We do, oh,
Did you,
okay. Well, we'll get started. Two others are supposed to be joining us.
okay.
Okay, but this is Delegate Beauchamp. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee.
All right.
And Delegate Miracle North, House Bill 185.
Thank you, Ann. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, once again, and always the esteemed members of Ways and Means Committee and Appropriations, of course. I am Delegate Bernice Miracle North, District 14. It is my pleasure to come before you on House Bill 185, Therapeutic Child Care Grant Program Funding Alterations. Now, in 2023, I had the opportunity to see firsthand the impact of therapeutic child care in the Laurie Center in Montgomery County. It is therapeutic child care program in Montgomery County, one of several that is benefiting from this particular grant program. I'm also thankful to the Ways and Means Committee that visited the Laurie Center in 2024 to observe the impact of the therapeutic program is having on our youngest children. So for those who haven't already known about this program, this is a program that deals with licensed integrated mental health and education programs for families with at-risk children from birth to 5. These children show significant delays in social and emotional development. Many have experienced trauma in their life or have been removed from typical mainstream preschool or daycares due to safety concerns or behavioral issues. Therapeutic child care programs partner with parent and caregivers to effectively support the development of the child and a family as a whole. So it offers specialized child care, for example, services for children who are experiencing homelessness or housing uncertainty. Now, why I'm here is that there was $3.7 million allocated for a 3-year annually for 3 years, and that money has expired. As some of you may or may not know, the governor did propose a $1.5 million for this program for 1 year, though, and it was not mandated, discretionary. So one of the reasons why I am still going forward with this bill is that I believe that stable funding for this program is essential. The fiscal stability shows that we are caring for our children to make sure that they have the sustained care and that you don't have parents wondering, is the program going to be over in 12 months, scouring for the next child care availability for their child. And I really invite you to read, and I'm not going to quote any of them, but I really invite you to read the testimonies of the parents, Ms. Hernandez, Ms. Hirsch, Ms. Ritchie, and Mr. Rosenthal. And look at how have they, once they realized their child was in need of care, how stressed out and worried they were, and how each and every time they had each of them will say that they had the program come to their attention and completely transformed their families' lives and made it easier to continue to go to work, to make sure that they were cared for while they're able to go to work in a way that is conducive to that child's particular needs. Now, the therapeutic child care programs have been proven effective, and as I mentioned, I please encourage you to read the testimonies of these individuals. But 80%, there's been 80% success rate at transitioning children to a mainstream kindergarten and maintaining typical education placement and social emotional gains through 2nd grade. And that's what we want. We want these children to address their trauma, address their social emotional issues, so they can be matriculated into traditional education settings and able to thrive in the transformative programs that we're doing with our school system. So not only am I asking for funding to be mandated, I'm also asking for the fact that the reason why I'm asking for funding to be mandated is that the demand is growing. You'll see testimony from the ARC Montgomery and how they have an ongoing wait list due to the demand. MSDE had plans to fund programs in Eastern Shore and Baltimore. So the demand is growing. And we need to have these programs for our vulnerable children to be able to matriculate into a traditional school setting. So by investing in therapeutic child care programs now, we're also investing money now to save money in the long run, to avoid costly corrective actions on our youth, while reducing the need for family services and long-term intensive special education. As I'll highlight in my testimony written that the average cost per pupil in Maryland's K through 5 public schools is $18,000, and the average tuition for non-public special education K through 5 is approximately $8,000. So with each child we're successfully placing into a public school kindergarten classroom through this program, we're saving about $62,000 a year. So even as we face a deficit, this kind of investment is truly a cost-saving measure for our families and communities that no longer want to be worrying, when is this money going to run out? These programs are working, and if it's not working, if it's working, we shouldn't get rid of it. So I'm asking for a favorable report on House Bill 185. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions? Delegate, well, first I would like to say, I would like to thank you for arranging our site visit during the interim at the Lorraine, is that what it's?
Lori Center
Lori
in
Center, thank
Rockville,
you.
yes.
Lorraine is a nursing home in my jurisdiction.
Oh.
The other end of the spectrum. It was very insightful, and so I appreciate the effort that you took to put that together. Delegate Miller.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill. One of the things that I liked about the Lori Center in our visit was they actually have a training program where they teach other teachers how to implement this program in their school system. But then I was very disappointed when I came back to Frederick County and I had found out they had applied to do that and they did not have enough funds in their budget to be able to have that in our community, right? So one of the things that I had thought that they might be able to use for was the consortium funding that did over $111 million in grants, but they can't use, evidently they can't use the grants for this type of funding. So if you could help me look into that aspect, or do you know anything about being able to use that type of funding to train the trainers? Because obviously budget impacts are huge around the state, so.
Yeah, if I understand the consortium for community supports as a different purpose than the therapeutic child care. Yeah. And I think it's just a wordsmith issue, right? And MSDE dispenses these funds. So that sounds like more of a conversation, with legislators and the Department of Education to see like what can we do about that. But I appreciate your point in terms of being creative on how we are going to allocate money for these programs.
And to be able to have it work across the state because it's an amazing program.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Delegate Beauchamp for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 185. Is Delegate Grammer here? Okay, we will skip to, I saw Delegate Bagnall. House Bill 226.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the esteemed Ways and Means Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Heather Bagnall, District 33C, Anne Arundel County, here to support House Bill 226, Anne Arundel County Public Schools School Schedule Options. You have my written testimony, so I will try to quickly summarize. As this committee is aware, Anne Arundel County has been looking at school schedules innovations for a number of years. We passed the Healthy Start Times, which, though we continue to see some growing pains, we are also beginning to see the benefit in our educational outcomes. Last year, this body considered a much more comprehensive schedules pilot, which ultimately the committee did not choose to move forward, but the work which was begun continued throughout the interim. The county created a work group which has considered a number of potential innovative models from year-round school to trimesters. Now, HB 226 is none of these because through that work, we know that we're not ready for that level of transformation. But all this is to say that House Bill 226 is not a monumental change, but a small ask for flexibility. Under current law, schools are required to be open 180 actual school days with a minimum of 1,080 school hours each day. Don't want to scare anyone. While Anne Arundel County Public Schools meets the instructional time requirement, they currently implement a number of early dismissal days to meet the school day requirement. Early dismissal days, especially end-of-year early dismissal days, often have a higher rate of absenteeism in Anne Arundel County. Often the curriculum has been completed, and teachers have expressed that educational outcomes are not necessarily improved by these days. Parents have also expressed difficulty planning travel and daycare around these early dismissal days. And as Anne Arundel County continues to navigate challenges with transportation and childcare, this flexibility allows the school system to maximize instructional classroom time while meeting the needs of working parents. Now, House Bill 226 allows the Anne Arundel County Public Schools, at the behest of the board, to enact a condensed school year model which allows greater flexibility in school scheduling if they meet the 1,080-hour requirement. The current proposal of early dismissal day flexibility was heavily debated in the interim work group, and it was found that early dismissal days were one of the most notable challenges of our current scheduling system. Numerous constituents have come forward in support of greater flexibility in scheduling at the end of the year as schools approach summer break, sharing concerns that their students would be better served not having to travel to school for days where minimal instruction is occurring. Though Anne Arundel County would be the first in the state to adopt an hours model, about 48% of states do allow school districts to meet just the hours requirement. At my request, Anne Arundel County Public Schools has also issued a letter of intent to negotiate in good faith should the committee elect to move forward with this legislation. I do understand that there are some additional concerns to be addressed, and our delegation will be hearing this bill at our Friday delegation meeting, and we'll be moving through our subcommittee process as well to ensure all stakeholders have the opportunity to provide feedback. I will confess I took my charge of drop your bills very seriously, and I got a little bit ahead of the delegation schedule. Now, there is no opposition to this bill, and you will see from the fiscal note, as this is enabling legislation, there is also no fiscal impact. Families and faculty across Anne Arundel County Public Schools deserve the convenience of a more lenient school schedule, and House Bill 226 offers that flexibility at little to no cost to instructional time. For these reasons, I respectfully ask for a favorable report on House Bill 226.
Okay, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 226. Do we have Delegate Grammer, Delegate Maggioni, Delegate Frazier Hildago, Delegate Forbes, Delegate Wims, come on down. House Bill 325. And do you have a panel of folks you would like to call up?
Yes. Madam, if I could bring my panel up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And there is someone who is virtual. We'll check to see if they're here.
Sit here with me.
Standing in for Dr. Taylor.
Okay.
I had Lauren Lamb too. Is Lauren Lamb here?
Yes, and then we'll call.
I don't see her. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Madam Vice Chair, and wonderful committee members of the best committee in the Maryland General Assembly. Yeah. For the record, I am Delegate Greg Williams, District 39. I'm here to introduce House Bill 325, Adult Education, High School Diploma by Examination, Requirements in Study, the GED Bill, Exam Accessibility Act. The bill will allow GED exam takers to take all 4 parts of the GED in Spanish or English. Currently, an individual can take 3 out of 4 in Spanish, with reasoning through language arts, which is RTLA, section being the only one required to be taken in English. Unfortunately, this requirement creates an unnecessary barrier for Spanish-speaking examiners to obtain a GED. The bill also mandates a study to be conducted by the Maryland Department of Labor, which has submitted written testimony in favor of the bill. And at this point, I wanted to also just say I'm so thankful to them, because most people thought in my district that this bill would become under the Department of Education. But as we now know, it's the Department of Labor that actually administers it. The department will research what other languages could be beneficial to the GED and report to the feasibility of the costs and associated with the implementation. The report will be submitted on or before December 1st, 2026 to the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. The bill is intended to increase accessibility to the GED exam by removing English-only requirements and researching implementations for other languages. Maryland will be made easier for bilingual Marylanders to get their GED with this bill. And I also want to say that, looking at the fiscal note, they said it's minimal, And then I wanted to say this morning we had a chance to, with the Veterans Caucus, to talk with the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. And I asked him and told him about this bill, and he said that he supports the bill because this will give more of our Maryland students an opportunity to join the military. So in closing, I asked for a favor report on this bill. And with that, we'll have the panel members. We'll start with Ms. Yang, President of the School Board, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of Ways and Means. My name is Julie Yang. I'm the president of Montgomery County Board of Education. It's great to be here with you. I'm testifying in support of House Bill 325. Okay, this fall, past fall, the board received an update on our Career Readiness Education Academy program, or CREA for short. CREA is a program that supports emerging multilingual learners who are at least 18 years old and are unlikely to meet all the necessary graduation requirements before turning 21. This fall, the board learned that students must take the reasoning through language arts section of the GED exam in English. We also learned that Maryland is the only state with this requirement. My fellow board members and I were immediately struck by the inequity of this requirement. Our initial reaction was satisfied when we learned the data. Only 3 CREA students passed all 4 sections of the GED exam last school year. But let me break down the sections. You can clearly see the disparity. Among our CREA students, 32 students achieved a passing score on the math session. 45 passed the science portion of the exam. 52 achieved a passing score in social studies. And only 7 passed reasoning through language arts. And 66 attempts were made, and only 7 passed. That is a success rate of little more than 10%. For comparison, the passing rate in math was approximately 33% and 40% for science and social study. The requirement of non-native English speakers take the reasoning through language arts portion of the GED exam in English is artificial. Can I finish my last sentence? Okay. And it's a significant barrier. And we would like to stress that not having the equivalent of a high school diploma limits job opportunities for individuals who are otherwise qualified or able to perform the required duties of the job and negatively impact an individual's earning potential. So I urge you a favorable report for HB 325 so that we may fix this inequity for Maryland residents. Thank you so much.
Why don't you go next? And then you go after.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me here today. My name is Lindsay Wahlberg, and I am the instructional specialist for the CREA program at Montgomery County Public Schools, and I'm also here to express my strong support for House Bill 325. Each year, hundreds of newly arrived students enroll in MCPS, many of whom are over 16 and face the daunting challenge of learning a new language while also navigating an unfamiliar public school system. To earn a Maryland high school diploma, these emerging multilingual learners must meet the same outcomes as native English speakers, despite the language barrier and, in some cases, the delayed entrance into our schools. To support these students, some local districts have implemented alternate pathways to graduation. In MCPS, this is CREA. CREA offers career and technical education courses, English language development, and GED preparation classes. We have numerous students currently enrolled in CREA who have taken the Reasoning Through Language Arts, or RLA, component of the GED exam in English 5 to 6 times and still have not passed. I'd like to talk for a minute about Francisco, a student enrolled in our CREA program. He works full-time during the day and attends evening classes. He enrolled in 2023 and in just 3 weeks passed the social studies, science, and math exams, all of which he took in Spanish. He's taken the RLA exam 6 times, but still hasn't passed. There are currently 18 CREA students just like Francisco. They've passed the other 3 sections, but have not yet been successful with the RLA exam in English. A high school diploma is a gateway to increasing earning potential, expanding job prospects, and access to post-secondary education. Individuals without a high school diploma face higher unemployment rates and earn significantly less than those who've completed their education. We must ensure that emergent multilingual learners can earn a livable wage and participate meaningfully in our community. This bill takes a crucial step in this direction. Thank you.
Could we get Council next? Did you want to go next?
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the committee. My name is Lauren Lamb, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland State Education Association, representing more than 75,000 educators across the state. I urge you to support House Bill 325, making the GED exam more accessible to Marylanders whose primary language is Spanish or another language. In addition to expanding opportunities for Maryland's increasingly multilingual workforce, I want to highlight the benefits of a multilanguage GED option for families and children. Children benefit when their parents and caregivers are able to further their own education, which is why offering adult education courses like GED prep is considered a best practice in community schools, like we are expanding across the state. Some research, excuse me, some research even suggests that when a parent earns a GED, the likelihood of their child attending college increases. Promoting educational achievement in any language benefits our society as a whole. HB 325 will increase equity and access, and I urge you to issue a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Wilk de Benitez, and as CASA's Director of Education, I am here today in strong support of House Bill 325. CASA provides multiple education services to Maryland immigrants, including college and career readiness, ESOL, and vocational training. HB 325 is as much a language access bill as it is an equal opportunities for professional advancement bill. It would align Maryland with virtually all other states where the GED test is already offered in both Spanish and English. The absence of robust language access currently limits opportunities for immigrants to fully realize their professional potential. Many young adults join our communities in their later years of high school with English fluency, creating a significant barrier to timely graduation, post-secondary enrollment, and meaningful employment. Many immigrants, particularly low-income residents, are not able to develop linguistic, academic, and professional skills in a linear manner as most students do. Familial and economic constraints require that they instead develop multiple skills simultaneously in order to meet their full professional potential in a timely manner. Offering the GED test exclusively in English means that many must first achieve English fluency and then pursue academic and finally professional goals. This is an unrealistic timeline for many and creates further strains on the Maryland economy at a time when there are workforce gaps in critical industries such as education and healthcare. Providing the GED test in Spanish is an equitable solution that allows Marylanders to develop multiple skills in a more efficient manner. It will remove a significant barrier to those seeking access to the careers that best match their talents and most impactfully contribute towards a thriving Maryland economy. For these reasons, CASA 325. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. We do have 3 other folks signed up to testify favorable, but are there questions for anyone on this panel? Okay, thank you very much. Is Stephanie Chantal here? I might have butchered that, I'm sorry. Come on up. Tanya Perez Fuentes, come on up. And then let's see if we have Nuez here virtually. Whoever wants to go first.
Good afternoon. What an honor and privilege it is to be here before you today.
I am Tanya Fuentes, a native of Maryland, a mother of 5, and a very proud educator at the MCPS program, Career Readiness Education Academy, CREA, the only public school GED program in the state. I am here today in favor of House Bill 325. Since 2019, I have had the pleasure of working and supporting a large number of CREA students who came to the state of Maryland in hopes of working and providing for their families, students who have faced adversities, trauma, and loss. They come to CREA knowing that education will open doors for them. They come to CREA in an effort to find success and live their American dream. That American dream begins when they obtain their GED. Many age out, only missing the reasoning through language arts exam of the GED. When you Google GED RLA exam, the GED official page reads, quote, reasoning through language arts, reading comprehension and writing are all about communication. The RLA test assesses your ability to understand what you read and how to write clearly, end quote. What it does not say is in English. But when you Google GED RLA in Spanish in Maryland, what does it say? Quote, Maryland is the only state that requires the RLA section of the GED to be taken in English. The only state. Not Vermont, not West Virginia, not North Dakota, the 3 states with the least amount of Spanish speakers in the country. But Maryland, whose second largest minority group are Latinos, Spanish speakers. I'm asking today for this bill to pass. It will be life-changing for those students who dream of going to college, for those students who do the blue-collar jobs and not having their GED because of that one section is preventing them from a job promotion or a training for higher level career certification. The current requirement to take the reasoning through language arts section of the GED in English is an artificial and substantial barrier for individuals who are otherwise able to pass the GED exam. We must recognize that language development can and will continue to occur once these individuals enter the workforce. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Schonthal, and I am the only full-time English language development teacher at CREA Evening Program. I have taught both mathematics and reading language arts at CREA. My students are the hardest working students I've had the pleasure of teaching. These students have significant interrupted education, which creates large gaps in their learning. My job is to bridge that gap so they can further their education. Year after year, we have a record number of students passing 3 sections of the GED. The reasoning through language arts test has proven to be the most challenging. In my opinion, students not passing the RLA test is not based on a lack of skill, but solely due to a language barrier. The academic language and rhetoric they must possess to pass that section requires more time. I want to tell you about Melzar, our CREA program alumni. Melzar, originally from Honduras, attended school in his home country until the 6th grade. He left school to help provide for his family. As a newcomer, unaccompanied youth who was already 18 at the time he arrived, he enrolled directly into CREA. He took evening classes as he worked full-time in landscaping during the day. While in CREA, he excelled in his HVAC course and passed 3 of the 4 GED sections. He exited our program in June 2023 due to age. Despite not passing the GED while enrolled, he persevered through years of self-study. After leaving CREA, he finally passed the RLA exam after 8 attempts. Now he has a high school diploma and he is applying to a technical school, continuing his education in the field of HVAC, which was previously unavailable to him as a non-graduate. His goal is to eventually own a small business. I ask you to please support House Bill 325. It will change the lives of so many. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And wrapping this up, we have Ms. Nuez. Whenever you're ready for 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Atterbury and Vice Chair Wilkins and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Dr. Aitza Haddad Nunez, and I am honored to testify in support of HBO 325. As an educator, an advocate, and founder of Friendly Law, a nonprofit dedicated to increasing access to legal and educational resources, I have witnessed firsthand how language barriers limit opportunities for Maryland's diverse residents. Maryland remains the only state where the GED Reasoning through Language Arts test is offered exclusively in English. This policy disproportionately disadvantages Spanish-speaking residents, forcing them to take the most linguistically challenging section of the exam in a language that is not their primary mode of academic learning. Other states, such as Texas, California, and Florida, allow test takers to complete the RLA in Spanish, providing a fairer path to educational and economic advancement. For many Spanish-speaking Marylanders, English is a second language, and their reading comprehension and writing skills are often stronger in Spanish. Without the option to take the RLA in their strongest language, many capable individuals are blocked from earning their diploma, pursuing higher education, or advancing in the workforce. This issue is especially critical for Hispanic students with learning disabilities who already face barriers in traditional education. Denying them access to the GED in their most proficient language creates an immeasurable obstacle that is basically trapping them in a cycle of educational and economic disadvantage. Throughout my career, I have worked closely with immigrants and bilingual communities, and I understand the profound impact that language accessibility have on social mobility. HBO 325 is not just about fairness, it's about equity. It ensures that every Marylander has a realistic path of earning a diploma and advancing economic stability. In the spirit of leaving no one behind, I urge you to support HBO 325 and help remove these barriers for success. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Wims.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 325. So we are jumping back. Delegate Grammer, House Bill 319.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a panel. With your permission, I'll get started. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Robin Grammer to present House Bill 319. House Bill 319 requires that each county board of education make available the phone, email, and contact information of its members as appropriate. The local boards of education make huge decisions that affect the everyday lives of students, parents, and the public. They also govern the use of the taxpayers' largest expenditure, our public school system. In my district, I hear frequently that students, parents, or other stakeholders have issues they would like to address with their Board of Education representative, but they can never speak with them. That is because their contact information is either not readily available, obfuscated, or not provided at all. This bill attempts to resolve that by requiring the local boards of education to require for non-student members an email address, a mailing address, and a direct phone number that will be provided by the school system, and for the student members, an email address. One of the foundational parts of the democratic process is feedback from the public. We should empower parents, students, and public stakeholders to engage in local boards. Thanks for the opportunity to present House Bill 319. Be happy to take questions, and I'd ask for a favorable report.
Okay, any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very
so much.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 319. House Bill 192, Delegate Maggioni, and you have one person signed up. Do you want him with amendment? Do you want him to stand back or bring him up?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Madam Chair.
You have one person signed up favorable with amendment. He can come up later, or it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll just go first. This
Okay.
last one time, he kind of screamed in my face over my bill, so I'll just do
You're like
mine
loving
separate.
our committee this year.
I know. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Nina Mangione of District 42A, and I am happy to appear before you in support of HB 192, titled the No Distracted Learning Act. Cell phone usage in our schools has become a concern across Maryland. Every day we hear from educators about the challenges they face in their classrooms. Simply put, we have a problem in our classrooms, and that problem is cell phone use. Baltimore County School Superintendent Dr. Miriam Rogers made the following statement during a July school board meeting, quote, "They can be a source of disruption across our schools. There's widespread agreement that cell phones and cell phone use distract from learning in schools." As a matter of fact, to add, I think that she said that was her biggest concern when we met with the Baltimore County delegation. Our teachers do not need another challenge, and our classrooms do not need any more distractions. We need a focused approach on learning. Our teachers are reporting that students are constantly on their cell phones, It is a problem that mostly affects middle and high schoolers, but now even younger students have phones, and that can be a problem at every grade level. Nicholas Shockney, the Carroll County Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, summed it up perfectly at a school board meeting when he said, quote, "There is no need for cell phones as an instructional tool. We do not need cell phones in the classroom." HB 192, I believe, is common sense legislation that addresses a universal statewide problem that demands our attention. I urge your support with this bill. And just again, for the record, this bill, it simply requires that local Board of Educations to adopt a policy prohibiting the students from using a cell phone during school hours. And it also sets disciplinary actions as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to propose the bill.
Okay, I believe we have a question. Yep, Delegate Roberson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate, I just want to let you know, Delegate Boafo also has a similar bill, and his bill actually goes into implementation, calls for implementation starting in the 2026-2027 calendar year, which yours doesn't have a specific year mandating when it must be implemented, but I suggest maybe you want to talk to him.
Yeah, actually, no, great point, and we sent to him, I think he had already dropped it, so we couldn't co-sponsor, but we were on board with his bill as well.
Okay, that's good to know. His hearing is February 12th, so maybe we can skip that and pull it together. Just trying to, for ease of complementary work efforts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. We have coming up on the heels of this, David Fraser Hidalgo, who has a similar bill. I think there is a lot of interest in cell phone use this session. Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and great bill. Thank you for bringing it to the committee. My understanding, I think jurisdictions can do this now if they so choose, right? But this would make it across the board. Is that accurate?
Yes, I believe from my further research, so I learned more about this, is that there were, I think, 19 of 24 counties. So some have not implemented a policy, but yeah, this would set kind of a state standard on that.
Great, thanks so much.
Yep.
Any other questions? This is more of just a comment. I think this is really an interesting issue, actually. In Howard County, I know they're looking at the issue now and going through this process, but at my oldest son's school, I mean, on back to school night, they said, do not text your child. If we see a cell phone, we are taking that cell phone. So I know he puts it in his locker, I think, or his backpack or something, and I can't even communicate to him to try to find him during pickup until he's like, talk to 20 girls and then decides to turn on his cell phone. But I've heard from other schools in Howard County that kids literally just look at the teacher like, yeah, right, I'm not turning over my cell phone. So it is interesting. Some schools can get a hold on it and control it, and some can't. So it's
I'll just comment. I know how much of a distraction cell phones can be for myself. But when and to the chairman of the Baltimore County delegation, we had met with the Baltimore County Superintendent, Dr. Rogers, and I actually had meant to I did raise my hand, but somebody got to me beforehand and asked what one of the biggest problems she has, and she flat out said, well, cell phone use is one of her biggest concerns, and this is what she does every single day of the year. So I take her at her word that this is a serious problem.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Ebersol has one quick question.
First of all, you'll have at Dr. Rogers on Friday at delegation, so you can.
There we go. I can bring it up to her.
There is a question of, and I don't think you can answer it. It's rhetorical mostly, but once you institute these policies, and you add another layer on something else. We just talked about how kids don't listen. Just having a policy may not cure the problem. Okay, so I don't know if there's any. I'm going to look at all these bills and see if any of them have anything built in that helps with sort of enforcement or that sort of thing. So.
And one of the enforcement mechanisms was to remove the phone until the end of the day. So the hope of something like that would obviously be that they wouldn't be able to use the phone during the rest of the school period. But yeah, and then I agree with you, and I know that local boards hopefully would come up with a policy here as well on how we handle something like that. So thank you very much. I agree with your concern there.
Okay, we do have Peter Boyko signed up favorable with amendment.
Afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Peter Boyko. I'm a junior at Northwest High School in Montgomery County. As a student, I've seen firsthand the roles cell phones have played inside the classroom. I'm a student advocate in Montgomery County, but I remember the one issue that got me started in student advocacy and leadership in the first place was actually cell phones in schools. Back when I was in 7th grade, when I first joined my middle school student government association for the first time. And throughout the years, cell phones in schools have been in conversations, and as student body president in 8th grade and vice president at my high school, I've had the opportunity to speak to students, teachers, and administrators on this issue. Although most high schoolers may not be keen to admit it, instructional time is instructional time, and cell phones can be seen as a distraction. However, what we also must recognize is that a complete cell phone ban would not be ideal, regardless of level of education, for multiple reasons. School, especially high school, can often feel hectic and fast-paced with only minutes in between classes. Therefore, lunch and passing time are opportunities for students to transition and take time off. Therefore, I would appreciate amendments to only restrict cell phone use during instructional time and then allow school districts to decide and hear from their community about further restrictions that may be considered. Moreover, for cases of emergency, having a cell phone on the person may be necessary. That said, an amendment I would encourage to Section 3 is the exception for cases of emergency as well, for example, when there's a safety incident at a school. With the inclusion of these amendments, I encourage passage of this bill. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, first of all, excellent job. Hear, hear. Thanks for coming to take the time out to testify, and I think he's up on the next bill as well. So if it's the same testimony, you can just come up and say, me too, the same thing. But any questions for the young man? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. And that concludes the testimony on House Bill 192. Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, House Bill 57. And you can bring anyone up. There's a James York signed up favorably from MedChi, if you are here. Okay, I don't see him. Whenever you're ready, sir. What'd you say?
Just trying to make a joke, Madam Chair. I was distracted, yes. Oh. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to be before you today. You've heard this and you're going to continue to hear this. I'm so excited to introduce a House bill with such a low number. I usually don't get House bills with a low number like this, but this is House Bill 000057. So with Thank you. So you've heard previous testimony. This bill essentially attempts to address what you've heard so many times before. It is the way this bill is constructed, it basically says that jurisdictions have to come up with a policy. It leaves the particulars of that policy up to those particular jurisdictions to do it as they see fit. As you know, and as you've heard, many jurisdictions across the country, including California, Indiana, Virginia, Ohio, South Carolina, 13 states altogether have come up with a policy. In one way or another. I did have a video, which we're not going to play, but you should all have it in your inbox. And I want to take this in a slightly different way. You've already heard testimony of how disruptive it is in classes. And I will tell you, I know it's disruptive because I have kids in Montgomery County Public Schools, and they tell me all the time how disruptive it is. As a matter of fact, one of them is disruptive with their phone to the point where a teacher in their class, I'm being very, very gender specific here because I don't want to get in trouble, but a teacher in their class came up and took their cell phone from them, and their response was, "That's fine." Click. And turned their AirPod on and continued to listen to whatever they wanted to listen to in the class, and was very proud of himself. So, yes. And I'll tell you more about what I punished him with, but he no longer attends Montgomery County Public Schools. Because this was not just that issue, but this was a culmination of issues which I'll get into. With that said, you know how disruptive it is in class. There is a carve out here for people with, for kids that have special needs. So you don't need to worry about that. If there is a need and they can articulate it, there's a carve out for that to still use their phones. One of the things that has been mentioned, and again, you have it in your inbox, is the amount of fighting that goes on. The cell phones are not, it's not just disruptive in the classroom, which you all know. I mean, it is. It's disrespectful to the teachers. They can't learn as well when they or their neighbors sitting next to them are playing on their phones or doing whatever on their phones. But the amount of fighting is completely off the charts. There was a case 2 years ago where my 2 children saw 5 fights in their high school. 5 fights in one day. I have video, if anybody wants to see it, not the video that's in your inbox, but other video, because it has faces in it, so I didn't disseminate it. I have video of one particular fight at a Montgomery County public school where one student was knocked unconscious in the middle of the lunchroom, in the middle of lunch, was knocked completely unconscious. And it's like the NFL. I've got 3 different versions of that fight from 3 different camera angles. Because the kids, they use their phones to video the fights, and they get likes on Instagram or whatever social media platform they're using. So when they get those likes, that encourages them to encourage the fighting. So you will hear kids screaming, fight, 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 and encouraging the screaming. And then you'll see them competing with their phone to get the best camera angles and the best video possible. There came a point in time where there was 4 or 5 fights a week, but on one particular day, there were 5 fights in one day. So it got to a point with one of my children where I was like, I just cannot allow that child to continue to witness this level of violence, and he is no longer in public school. And that really, really hurt me to do, and I hate saying it out loud on the record, but that is the truth. So I'm like, I know you have a lot of bills on this subject. I will tell you, I have had advocates come to me and say, you know, no cell, bell to bell. And at first, when I drafted this legislation, I thought, you know, let the local jurisdictions make up their mind how they want to deploy this. And I still think that that's true. But I do think that this committee needs to take a very, very serious look at no cell, bell to bell. I did not put it in this bill, but so many folks have come to me and talked about exactly what I just said with the amount of fighting that's going on. And a lot of that fighting gets filmed in the middle of the lunch hour. And a lot of the fighting gets filmed in between classes. When kids need to get out of their classroom and go to their next classroom, that's a great opportunity to play on your phone, and that's a great opportunity for a fight. And that is what is happening. Now, it is better than it was, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. With that said, I have been in touch with the superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools in drafting this legislation, and I think that is about it. I am happy to take questions. I know this is a very sensitive topic. It's a very sensitive topic personally for me. I don't want to have to put this legislation. I am not on the school board. So, but sometimes we got to do what we have to do, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am Dr. Jim York. I'm a physician with decades of experience caring for Maryland patients. And today, as past president of MedChi, our state medical society, and as chair of our Child Behavioral Health Task Force, I'm speaking on behalf of Maryland physicians in strong support of House Bill 57, which prohibits cell phone use by students during instructional time. As someone who's dedicated my career to the health and well-being of our community, I'm deeply concerned about the impact of excessive cell phone use in our children. In the classroom, phones are more than just a distraction. They're a barrier. The stories just abound on this, to learning and personal growth. Research in educational psychology shows students distracted by phones score significantly lower on tests. It makes sense if this type of stuff is going on. London School of Economics, there's a lot of studies, found banning phones improved test scores, especially in low-income struggling students. And as we've heard, many states now regulate cell phone use in schools. The effects extend beyond academics. The American Psychological Association links excessive screen time to higher rates of anxiety, depression, and sleep problems in adolescents. As a physician, I've seen these issues manifest in my patients, and I know how devastating this can be for families. So constant phone connectivity increases social pressures, cyberbullying, further harming young minds. So the bill provides a simple yet critical solution to help students focus, connect meaningfully with peers, and protect their mental health. And the bill's thoughtful exceptions for health needs, IEPs, and educational purposes ensure flexibility while addressing this very pressing issue. As a physician who cares deeply about the future of our children and our grandchildren, I urge you to support House Bill 57. Together, we can create healthier, more focused learning environments and set our students on the path to success. And I also had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Bedell, Superintendent of Schools in Anne Arundel County. And actually, Anne Arundel County has already done this. And preliminary results seem very, very promising. So this is going well. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and for all of your hard work on the behalf of Marylanders.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Peter Boyko to come back up. If you would like to just say, I reiterate my last testimony.
You can do it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, echo my previous comments, and then I also appreciate the connection that the delegate raised regarding cell phone use to school safety. Like I mentioned earlier, cell phone use is kind of where I got started when it came to like student advocacy, that I joined my SGA for the first time over that issue because my middle school, Kingsview Middle School, Montgomery County, had a bell-to-bell, no-cell policy. And I don't know if this is worth noting, but even though we did have this complete cell phone ban at my middle school, fights and acts of violence still occurred, and I think that we might need to also teach some digital literacy as well when it comes to that issue. And then when we talk about safety incidents, that might raise a question in terms of security teams and other safety aspects at schools. But again, from what I said earlier, I think I think the bill that we have is something that should be supported, and we should allow school districts to, I guess, hear from their community and then develop further restrictions for their specific county. So yeah, but thank you again.
Thank you. So there are multiple questions. We will start with Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for bringing this bill forward. And just I really appreciate you identifying the student safety aspect of it. So I'm a Joppatown High School graduate, the murder at Joppatown High School this year. There's a lot of conversations around the role that cell phones played, and to your point, a bunch of kids in the bathroom, a bunch of people egging them on, escalates, all of a sudden there's a murder, right? That may have been avoided if all the kids there, that's well documented on the video because of the multiple angles, the exact same scenario you're referring to. There's questions about the role that being antagonized and the peer pressure played, right? Because we're all kids and we're all subject to peer pressure, right? Even as adults, we're subject to peer pressure. So I'm very grateful that you bring that up. And to your point, there's going to be no one policy that's going to eliminate fight in schools. There were fights when I was in school. But we can't have a policy that pours gasoline on the fire either. So I think this is an attempt to try to squash some of these other elements. I guess my question is tied to.
Okay, I was just about to ask him.
Sorry.
Because I thought the clock ticking. If you'd like me to.
So, in relation to Delegate Ebersol's question, which is a fair question in terms of, there's lots of policies that teachers have to enforce, and this would be one more element. Do you think if there was a bell-to-bell ban that would take pressure off teacher enforcement, because if students know not even bring the cell phone with you or keep it in your locker all day, they won't have to manage it, you know, every class, between classes, things of that nature. Would you feel an overall ban would take that pressure off of teachers enforcing this to, again, Delegate Ebersol's well-made point?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, I think that that's a logical conclusion or deduction. Not being a teacher, not being in the classroom, not being in the public school system, just having kids in there, that seems reasonable to me, but I don't know for sure that that's exactly what it would accomplish, but I do think that it makes sense that a teacher will just, when you walk in, you just know you cannot have the phone. And that eliminates, I would think that that would eliminate that argument or that altercation. I would imagine that for the first couple of weeks a month, there's going to be a couple of those, and then everybody's going to get it. Just like us growing up, like our parents, do you have your seat? Where's your seatbelt? But now every kid, at least that I know, as soon as they get in that car, they put their seatbelt on. And that's, I think, where we need to go. So, yeah.
Thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to address a student, and I've lost your name. I'm sorry. We were hunting for it up here.
Peter.
Just don't touch it.
Peter.
Don't turn it on.
Peter.
Thank you. Yeah. So kind of a quick follow-up on that question, because this does concern me, where we lose instructional time to phones, but we also lose instructional time to conflicts between teachers and students. Have you seen that happen? Have you seen a teacher try to tell a student to put a phone away or take it away from them due to policy, and they get embroiled in the action?
So this school year, my high school just implemented like a no cell phones during instruction time, so it's very new, and I think teachers are still adjusting. But when I was in middle school, I guess you could kind of see that, because my middle school had a very strict no cell phone policy, and you could see some students be resistant towards teachers politely asking to put a cell phone away.
And probably this is rhetorical, but do you think having a policy like this in place would give teachers, would make it easier for teachers? In other words, they probably wouldn't have to enforce as much, or do you think they would just give them more teeth for enforcement? It's not actually rhetorical, it's an either or.
I'm not entirely sure. I think when it comes to policies like these, students will try to find loopholes. And even at my middle school, when there was a very strict no cell phone policy, students still snuck it and tried to use it during class. It is kind of hard to enforce. And then there's also the question that gets brought up. Many teachers don't feel comfortable with taking a student's cell phone away due to, I think, liability concerns, or I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but like, so that's another question to be raised as well. So yeah.
Thank you for your answers. They're helpful.
Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing the bill. 2 questions. One, this does accept the lunch period, that they can use it at lunch?
Currently, the way it's drafted, yes.
Okay.
But it basically, the way it's drafted, it says that the school system needs to come up with a policy. So if you pass it the way it is, then it would be up to the school system to decide how they're going to enforce this.
Okay, because it mainly spells out the instructional time, but
Right.
I can ask you about that. But, because a lot of the fights obviously happen at lunch, and like you said. And
I would say, Delegate, this is, like, you have, I didn't know that there were going to, when I drafted this bill, I didn't know there were going to be so many bills, but I think it's great because, like in my committee, the subject matter is complicated, and in your committee it is too. You know this better than I'm going to know it, not being on Ways and Means and hearing the subject matter. With all of these different bills, I think it's a great opportunity for you as a committee to look at them all and go, like, what works, what doesn't, and start moving things around, which is why I brought up the amendment of bell to bell, no cell.
Right. And one of the things then that I did really appreciate with your bill that I did not see was the notification for the IEPs.
Right.
And then if it was required during an IEP, as part of an IEP, that they would be able to have their cell phone.
Absolutely. That was an important piece.
Yeah, incredibly important piece. And then also with, when you have the student's documented health issue, did you mean only documented in a 504, which is like a written specific strict plan, or just the parent says, or a doctor says, or something along those lines, or that's something you'd like us to look at?
I think that's something that you know, either the school system can make that decision, again, trying to give the school system a wide berth on how they want to enforce this, or you can look at it. I mean, I think it's a very again, like with a 504 or with any of them, it's important to make sure that there are exceptions to rules. This is not a it doesn't fit all. I mean, there are exceptions, and I think it's important to understand that. If there are medical issues that are real issues, then we need to make sure that, that student has the ability to use their cell phone if that's the case.
Absolutely, there are insulin pumps that are hooked onto phones and things like that. So, where they have to know what their blood sugar is. So yeah, I really appreciate you putting that in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. Okay, good promotion. So Delegate, thank you for the bill. We have several bills just this afternoon about cell phone use.
Right.
I had one the same. I think we have other cell phone bills as well. I think the Delegate Urbaso said, right, what can we do? Maybe we should have a ban cell phone caucus and come together and convince them, say, what can we do to really move this forward? So in terms of you are thinking, what do you think was the most resistant there to apply a cell phone ban?
I think that the most resistance are going to be something along the lines of what Delegate Ebersol said. And I would submit to this committee that doing nothing or being afraid of initially some conflict is not something that I think is a very valid concern, because if you do nothing, this will continue. If you do nothing, there will be more students that are not properly instructed in school, they're not properly taught. If you do nothing, there will be more fights, there will be more Instagram. And the one thing I think is important to realize, and I think a lot of people on this committee, especially growing up, if you got into a fight in high school when we were kids, like, some of your buddies and friends might remember it today. If you get into a fight in high school today and it is video from 3 or 4 different angles and posted, that is on the internet forever. And when that person is 40 or 50 years old, it will still be on the internet, and they will be reliving getting knocked unconscious or whatever it is, which is not only a travesty and bullying and everything that goes along with it, the medical issues that go along with it, but people will, you're that kid that got knocked out. That's what happens. And so I think not doing anything is really, really the wrong policy move. I am not sure I know the exact right policy move. I know the exact right direction, but I'm trying to give it to you to, look at all the bills and make the choice that you think is best. But I would strongly encourage this committee to please do something and do something significant. We are losing a generation of students, of kids.
Thank you. I always want to say I feel sorry for the kid who experienced 5 fights per day. Just unbelievable. Thank you.
Delegate Bogle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Peter, my questions are for you. So I will start by saying that I feel like the first generation of legislators that actually had cell phones in schools. At the time, though, I'll admit this to if I have a teacher watching from back in the day, I would play Farmville. I don't know if folks here are familiar with Farmville. That's what I would do. I feel like cell phones and computers and technology has evolved in a number of ways. Now you have TikTok, Instagram, all these different platforms. And we know we're up against kind of a real beast here, because these products, these technologies are getting more and more addictive, right? And we know there's data on this, there's science on this. So I'm curious just to hear from you as a student now. Do you feel like students are getting more and more beholden and addicted to their cell phones with these new tools and these new TikToks and new products that exist?
So as I mentioned earlier, I definitely feel cell phones are a distraction in schools, and I think part of that has to do with it being addicting. Students, on social media or whatever they do on their cell phone, it has become an addicting technology. And on that note, what I do want to say from a student perspective is I think the main issue with cell phones is the distraction. I haven't personally seen a lot of the safety stories that I'm hearing right now, but I think the main issue is a distraction, and that has to do with it being addicting.
Okay, got it. And I guess what's frustrating here, and I can hear it from you, and I see some faces back there, is that it feels like, maybe students that have the best intentions on their phones and are using them to text their parents are getting punished for what students that have bad intentions are doing, right? As a student, I would have felt really frustrated about that. But we are seeing an uptick in a number of really concerning trends with students, whether that be issues of anxiety and depression, whether that be issues of bullying, issues of substance use disorder, violence. So have you, and you don't have to, tattletale on anyone, right? But have you seen instances of, bullying on cell phones during the school day? Have you seen instances of, anything related to, drug use or anything that could be violent as a result of students using the phone during the school day?
Well, I'm not aware of what every student does on their cell phone. So I haven't seen those things that often, like in terms of what you're saying regarding drugs, or also cyberbullying is an issue, but personally I haven't seen a worrying trend, but I just also may not be aware of those incidents.
Thank you, Delegate Peter. Appreciate it.
Delegate Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I have a couple questions for you, Peter, because I'm very interested in your perspective, but I also would like to see if there's any input that,
Absolutely. Thank you, Delegate.
You can add as well.
Absolutely.
So I see kind of both sides of this policy. I've had this issue in my mind for quite some time, given that I have a 13-year-old daughter who is on her cell phone quite a bit. So my question is, well, one of my questions is the numbers of students that, is there, and I apologize for coming in the middle of your presentation, so if I've missed anything, I may have missed it. Is there any data or numbers of the students that are getting in trouble with cell phone usage?
I don't know that they track that specifically.
Okay.
I think it's just well known through through teachers that they're constantly asking students to put their phones away, or they just give up and just ignore those particular students. And then unfortunately what happens if that's a regularly or notorious student that does that, the teachers, eventually they just give up on that kid.
Right, and then is there any kind of information that says there's just a small number of people who really get in trouble for other things, and now the cell phone is on top, and are we getting, because my position is just like what Delegate Vogel was saying, is that some students who don't get into trouble, but may just have to be talked to about their cell phone usage, they're being punished, but they're really incredible students, or, they're okay students, whatever. We don't have any behavioral issues, but here we go with this. Because to me, cell phones are also a tool, because they're little mini computers in our hands, and to me, you tell students not to use their cell phone, they're going to use it anyway. They're going to find ways to do it. And if their only issue is the cell phone, can we steer them in the right direction to using it productively? I mean, AI is everything, and, we can use it as a tool productively, as a research tool, right? I mean, I know we have, what is it, the Google, what is the computers that they have, because my daughter doesn't even bring hers home.
Delegate Roberts, do you have a question?
The question is, have you considered any of these type of issues? Because what I see as a potential here is another reason for the teacher to pick up and call my phone. My daughter is not bad, I'm not getting all these phone calls, but I'm saying another reason for the teacher to pick up, and I don't need the teacher to call me to say, your daughter is using her cell phone when I told her not to. So deal with it. I mean, she's in your care, and you have discipline policies. You see what I'm saying?
I do, and I guess what I would say is similar to what I said earlier, and that is that I think that there will be some growing pains when this policy hopefully is introduced. There will be some growing pains, and then once you get through those growing pains, that'll kind of be it. I mean, I think that students trying to get around it, yeah, there'll be the occasional student trying to get around it, but as they start to accept that this is the policy, this is not determined by the teacher, so they can't blame the teacher. They can't go after the teacher. This is the policy, period. So will there be a couple of weeks or a couple of months of students rebelling or pushing back? Sure. And then once you get through that, that'll be the end of it. Yeah, there'll be some that jump into the bathroom, they go to the bathroom, and they text or they do what they want in the bathroom. You can't control every single situation, but even if we can tamp down, 90 or 85 or 90 or 95% of the use, that is a huge win just for the intellectual progress of teaching and the profession of teaching, and telling our teachers that their profession is respected and putting our students in a situation where they can actually learn. I mean, it's very distracting. You sit next to people all the time. If they're constantly on their phones or the phones are always buzzing, all the time, it's distracting to everybody. So there'll be some growing pains, no doubt. We'll get through those growing pains just like we do whenever we make policy changes. And I think those growing pains should not be used as an excuse not to change policy. That's my thought.
Okay, Delegate Roberson.
Oh, I'm sorry. He was getting ready to say
I'm sorry, could I add a?
Okay.
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 I just want to note the number of what appear to be Montgomery County students that are here to advocate in the gallery, and I'm hopeful, Madam Chair, that when my bill comes up, Prince George's County will be out of school as well. When it comes up, Peter, did you organize all of this?
No, I think this happened all by coincidence.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Delegate. My question speaks to features like iMessage, WhatsApp Web, where a young person can basically have the extension of the same features of a cell phone on their laptop. So in a circumstance, they wouldn't necessarily have their cell phone out or even in their possession, but they still can do the exact same things on their computer. And certainly I think we're moving in a place where we're giving students laptops now, which I think is appropriate. So can you respond to those circumstances? I know, as you mentioned, you can't control everything, but I guess my question is, how does that interplay with the goal of the bill?
I think that that is a fabulously astute question, Delegate. And that sounds like an amazing amendment to kind of close that loop. I think that's great. And I didn't think about it so much, although I should, because my kids have screen time, and for some reason, they find ways with their Chromebooks around it. So thank you very, very much. Absolutely. That's good. I think there should be an amendment to consider ensuring that social media applications or those applications that are not approved by the school system shall not be downloaded on a school-owned computer. I think something along those lines should be considered.
Well, it wouldn't. Thank you. First and foremost, it wouldn't necessarily be downloaded. Like iMessage. If you got, I really should have started with asking if you were Android or iPhone, but I forgot. But that's because it's innate. The way it's built out is meant to be integrated. Yeah. So I appreciate your response, and certainly I think something we'll discuss.
Yeah, it's a great observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, there are no more questions for this panel. Thank you very much. There is someone signed up unfavorable. Jarine Martinez-Mapp.
And thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair and the entire committee for your indulgence.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is a much friendlier committee than what you're used to.
Much. I left my committee with my chair. They deserved it. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, you can step back. Thank you.
Wait, can I ask him to stay?
No.
Okay, that's okay.
But we love you and support you too.
Okay.
So it's fine.
Good evening, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and esteemed committee members. My name is Jerry-Ann Martinez, and I'm a sophomore at Seneca Valley High School in Montgomery County. I stand here before you to urge you to oppose House Bill 57. While I understand the sentiment to ban cellular devices from schools comes from the desire to remove major distractions, technology has become deeply integrated in modern education. Banning phones in school would deny students access to an incredibly powerful tool that is being used to make learning efficient and beneficial for students. With phones, students have access to educational apps, research resources, and collaborative platforms that allow students to engage with one another. Removal of phones would hinder a student's ability to adapt to a tech-dependent world and would restrict the path to new learning opportunities and methods as to how a student can best learn. Instead of resisting the technological advances that are being thrusted upon our younger generation, Maryland should prioritize integrating of phone usage into learning to prepare students for a future where the use of technology is undeniable and, quite frankly, guaranteed. Additionally, phones are a crucial part of maintaining student safety in classrooms. According to K-12 school shooting database, there were 330 school shootings in the year of 2024. Phones play a crucial part during these emergencies as they foster communication between students, their guardians, law enforcement, to provide critical details and updates during dangerous situations. Phones being placed in lockers or a form of storage containers, as the bill text describes, would limit a student's ability to contact their loved ones about not only the situation at hand, but possibly the chance to say their last goodbyes or the last I loves you. An unfortunate reality for many, but a reality that we must think of and be prepared for. During such a situation, a student will not be able to access their phones if placed in their lockers or be able to have the mental capacity to act critically to retrieve their phones from their backpacks. Simply having a phone on their person with limitations on its usage would give students peace of mind while ensuring students are engaged in the lessons. Thank you.
First of all, fantastic job, great job. You were incredibly strong. You don't need anybody standing beside you when you are doing whatever it is you want to do on this earth. You are incredibly strong. I just want to make the point, and then we'll move on to any questions. I see there's one short question, that you bring up an excellent point that as a parent that I worried about, I didn't bring it up to the bill sponsors, but if something were to happen in my child's school, I would want them to be able to message me or get whatever alerts are happening. So I think you bring up an excellent point, and us trying to figure out whatever that balance is, because you're right, no one's going to be able to run to their locker or wherever their phone is. So I have no idea what the solution to that is, but you do bring up something that I would personally be concerned about. And with that, Delegate Roberts has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did an awesome job. And my question is, did you know that they have smart glasses? Smart prescription glasses with some same functions. Technology is developing all the time now. So do you think that, my question for you is, do you think that if kids were to start getting, who wear glasses, were to start getting their prescription glasses, the smart glasses, do you think it would be a good thing for the school systems to ban those glasses?
I mean, from what I've seen, smart glasses, they're usually being used to record or make phone calls, and there's no extent. After that, they're not able to access social media through their glasses or anything. So I don't think it would be particularly an issue, and I don't think glasses are really accessible because they're really costly, and I don't think that we as a community have enough people that make enough money to go out and buy these smart glasses that really don't have any redeemable qualities.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. That was a great answer. Delegate Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your testimony. You did absolutely do a fantastic job. I got some chills over here. I think my colleagues did too, listening to some of your testimony. But I do want to double down on Delegate Roberts' question. You mentioned that some of these glasses don't have access to technology. I can assure you that the Facebook Meta glasses absolutely can go on Facebook Live today. They can take pictures and post today. So given that reality, and then frankly, I also would submit to you that a computer used to be prohibitively expensive. Now they're not. I can go on TikTok and probably get one for $80 now. I see those advertisements, right? So understanding where we may be going, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, if it takes that long, how would you adjust your response?
In 3 to 5 years, if these glasses do become a big issue, first of all, there's a lot of students that don't wear glasses, but if it does become a problem and it like data shows that students are being affected, that their learning is being affected through their glasses, then I think there should be some sort of restriction, maybe have school counties like ban the glasses or make some sort of restriction where during instructional time they're only allowed to wear prescription glasses rather than the prescription but technological glasses. That's how I would address it, but computers took a long time to get to the point where they are now. So I really don't think that in the next maybe 10 years, these glasses will become a big thing.
I appreciate your answer. I'm looking forward to seeing what you say in 2 years, though. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Great job.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And that concludes the hearing on House Bill 57. Delegate Forbes, House Bill 326, and you have a panel you would like to bring up? I have Andrea Chipola, Julie Weaver, and Evan Richards. All in favor? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm Delegate Kathy Forbes, and I appreciate the opportunity to present HB 326, a bill that will allow students who participate in approved financial literacy coursework or extracurricular activities that build financial literacy to apply those hours toward their service learning hours required for high school graduation. There are many benefits, lifetime benefits, of being financially literate, both to the individual and our communities. Understanding budgeting, finance charges, interest rates, compounding interest, and investing empowers individuals to make smarter decisions about their finances. Additionally, and just as importantly, financial literacy can prevent people from making devastating financial mistakes that may lead to poor credit scores, bankruptcy, and foreclosure. Although the benefits of teaching financial literacy are widely accepted, only a third of our school districts in Maryland offer financial literacy as separate coursework. Rather, this topic is often embedded in our curriculum and other curriculum like history, math, or social studies. The legislation before you would allow students participating in a financial literacy course offered either by their school, an institution of higher education, or an organization approved by the County Board of Education to receive credit for that coursework towards their service learning graduation requirement. There are no mandates in this proposed legislation. The bill does not set curriculum. Local boards of education will determine what meets the criteria and how many hours of credit are given. This legislation offers a creative incentive to make financial literacy part of students' busy lives. As you may know, Maryland was the first state in our nation to implement a service learning requirement for high school graduation. This regulation mandates that every public school student in Maryland complete at least 75 hours of service learning to graduate. Students begin earning these hours in middle school. By allowing financial literacy coursework to count toward these hours, we would be elevating this necessary life skill and indicating to students that learning this skill is an important use of time. Early financial literacy lessons equip students with the tools to make informed decisions that lead to a greater financial stability, less stress, and a higher quality of living. These lessons are crucial to achieving economic health for individuals and greater stability for the community at large. By allowing financial literacy coursework to be included in service learning hours, we are encouraging our students to become financially literate as well as good citizens. I'm happy to answer any questions. I thank you all for listening, and I ask for a favorable report.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Chairman Atterbury, Vice Chairman Wilkins, and honorable members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Julie Weaver, and I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Council on Economic Education, here in support of this bill. For more than 70 years, MCE has empowered Maryland educators with tools, knowledge, and resources to teach economics and personal finance in K-12 classrooms. Our mission is simple yet critical: to ensure that every child, regardless of economic background, has the foundational skills needed to make informed financial decisions as consumers, savers, investors, workers, and citizens. Financial literacy is more than an academic subject. It's a movement of our time and a key driver of generational wealth. Yet, despite the best efforts, financial education is not equally accessible to all Maryland students. As an organization that works closely with all 24 school systems throughout Maryland, we see firsthand the disparities in financial literacy instruction across the state. Too many students graduate without fundamental understanding of budgeting, credit, saving, and investing, skills that directly impact their future stability and success. We recognize the challenges that boards of education face in determining curriculum priorities. However, we firmly believe that the financial literacy is not just important, it's essential. Allowing financial literacy education to count towards service learning hours is a practical and meaningful step in the right direction. This approach reinforces the critical importance of these life skills while creating new opportunities for student engagement and learning. And we request that you issue a favorable report on this bill.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and esteemed committee members. My name is Andrea Sapola. I am the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at UMBC. We support House Bill 326, which incentivizes financial literacy education for high school students by offering them credit for their service learning hours. This bill will reduce the likelihood that a student's financial literacy attainment depends solely on their family's understanding of these important financial issues, and or their willingness to discuss some sensitive money concerns with their students. It helps level the playing field by offering a built-in mechanism with respect to high school curricula to engage in these important game-changing topics. Financial literacy is very important at UMBC. Our Financial Smarts program engages over 1,000 students every year in financial literacy education, covering topics such as budgeting, creating good credit scores, investing, student loan repayment, and obtaining their first mortgage. We know that if our students are to get the most out of their UMBC degrees, they must have the skills and tools to make important and informed decisions. In a recent survey of UMBC first-year students who participated in our online self-paced cash course, we asked how often students had a conversation about different financial issues with an adult. Could be a teacher, coach, mentor, family friend. 30% of our students never or rarely had a conversation about creating a budget. Just over 30% never or rarely had a conversation about banking and saving strategies, and an astonishing 43% never or rarely had a conversation about difference between good and bad debt. So we ask for a favorable report because managing money is an important part of daily life, and we should encourage our students to be well-versed in these important life skills. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Evan Richards. I'm the head of Government and Community Relations for the Maryland Bankers Association. And we're here in strong support of House Bill 326. And it's a big, the largest priority of the Maryland Bankers Association is to support legislation that increases access to financial literacy for all Marylanders. You know, a goal of our member banks is to help their customers meet their financial goals. And too often, we do see customers come in dire financial situations. Repeating that phrase that we all know so well, I wish I would have known then what I know now. And I know, speaking from personal experience, I know how important financial literacy is. It's something that I was a beneficiary of the Maryland Council on education's programming when I was a senior in high school. It's something that helped me tremendously in life, and I think it can impact thousands of Marylanders across the state. And with that, I'll be brief, give some time back, and we support the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So do you know of schools that don't offer courses in financial literacy, high schools that don't offer courses in financial literacy?
As standalone coursework?
Well, I gather this is what they would have to do, is take a course in it at the high school to get the service
So the bill allows them to take a course at their high school, to take a course at a community college, or participate in one of the programs that's run through MCEE.
Thank you.
Or potentially an online program as well. So there's
It depends what the boards of education determine would meet this requirement.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on House Bill 326. Moving on to House Bill 197, Delegate Pastor. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury and Vice Chair Wilkins, committee members. Thank you for having me this afternoon. It is good to be here. For the record, I am Delegate Cheryl Pasteur, and today I return to present to you a bill for restorative practices schools. What you did for the children in Maryland last session by moving the bill was the beginning of new hope for Maryland's children. Chair Atterbury, with gratitude, you allowed me to work with Delegate Ebersol and Mr. Johnston to create this session's Bill 197, in which MSDE is asked and guided to create a comprehensive plan integrating restorative practice into daily school practices and activities, as well as behavioral protocols, which will educate our 21st century children in ways applicable to our 21st century children and their lives. Thank you. This year, you work with diligence to meet the needs of our students while meeting the challenges of the state's budget. What restorative practices offers is an instructional, behavioral, and communal path for all students, pre-K through grade 12, regardless of economics or demographics. It leads to self-responsibility, self-determination, and then self-actualization, what we want for our children. I have seen these practices employed in schools, which are vastly different in many ways. In Frederick County, thanks to Delegate Miller, and in Baltimore City. And the students are flourishing in both counties or both areas. So for naysayers who say that teachers will balk at another plan, I say they don't understand what restorative practices schools really mean. Teachers want to be able to teach and not spend class periods disciplining their students, as we have been hearing. With a comprehensive plan, they will be able to teach more and discipline far less. As a current BCPS, Baltimore County Public Schools educator said, I was so excited when the community training for restorative practices was held. I felt compelled, and that's the truth, that we needed to do this so we can stop putting them out. I want to teach my students, end of her quote. Remember, restorative practices are to benefit instruction, which include aspects of restorative justice as a subset. Fortunately, MSDE, and we have a couple of the people from MSDE here with us today, currently offer workshops to teachers and school administrators in restorative practices. Certainly the Division of Student Support, Academic Enrichment, see that all those the two head knobs, and they are big shots, and Educational Enrichment has already laid the groundwork for creating a comprehensive plan for any LEA or school interested in making these practices its educational paradigm. And finally, I am pleased to point out that the Legislative Black Caucus, seeing the value of restorative practices, has made this bill one of its caucus priorities. So I am asking you to pass this bill again and encourage the Senate to give it a vote and pass it in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Delegate Pasteur? Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Pasteur, for your hard work on this issue. And we really appreciated your openness and willingness to take suggestions last year as we work this bill. I think this is a question that needs to be answered. The bill is a little different than the one you presented here last year, but it's identical to the third reader version that we passed unanimously here in Ways and Means last year. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Delegate Roberson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, fellow judiciary mate. I just wanted to, I saw the note here from Baltimore City Commissioners about the cost, and then there's also a note on the fiscal note about Prince George's as well, saying that with the rollout, if this bill calls for individuals in every school, an individual to be trained on restorative practice and to lead that, it might be cost prohibitive. And so I don't know if you wanted to respond to that letter that was sent in for information, if you received that.
Okay, well, everyone is speaking finances, but I also have the fiscal note, our fiscal note. It does call for 1 year only in the first year that they would be doing it. And I would imagine that's a staffing cost, making sure that that happens. But again, that's why I pointed out in this that they've already done a really wonderful job of creating and laying this out, and have been working with school systems all along. So they understand it, they know what they're doing. And so all of that will be taken into consideration. And just looking at the cuts and talking about fiscal notes, which I'm real familiar when we're talking about this and everything that we have to cut, understanding that some of the cuts that have been made in other places will be actually with this absorbed, because some of the things that we're looking at in community schools are actually embedded in this.
Yes, ma'am.
So some of that will be eliminated.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you, Madam
And
Chair.
I certainly can speak more about it, but I know you don't want to hear it.
Delegate Young.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I wasn't going to ask a question, but to your question, it made me look at Baltimore City's testimony. And, you know, it does say that it may be cost prohibitive, but I just wanted to put on the record that I don't, and this is a question for you, I guess, Madam Sponsor, to identify a restorative practices coach at a school doesn't necessarily require a hiring of a new person. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. That is correct. That it does not require.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And that's an important point, that schools are doing this internally.
Okay, we're going to call up folks who are here to testify, so thank you very much. Delegate Pastor?
And I think that they're just the two, right, from MSDE.
Okay, we have a lot of people signed up here to testify.
Okay, well, I think a number of them are actually, because I followed instructions, so those who asked me, I told them it was sponsor only, and that they could go across the street and speak.
Okay.
So I don't know who else is here. I do know those two.
Okay, well, why don't the both of you?
So we will see.
Why don't I just call names?
Okay.
We'll do that. Zachary Hands, Mary Gable, Kelly Quinn, Frank Pantanella, okay? Alex Reese, Jean Ritchie, Gavin Falcon. What's your name, ma'am? Because I don't think, what's your name?
Mary.
Gable.
Gable. Mary Gable.
Oh, when I called you, you didn't come up.
You called my name.
Yeah, but you took a minute to come up, so you confused me. Jamara Russell. Sharon Blake. Okay. Dooney Ani. Excuse me. Martin Mitchell. Agna Nambordiri. Okay, here she comes. So we're just trying to fill the seats. And I'll start with you, sir. Everyone for 2 minutes, please.
Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Wilkins, and committee members. My name is Alex Reese, and I'm Chief of Staff for the Maryland State Department of Education. I'm joined today by Mary Gable, our Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Student Support and Federal Programs. MSD is providing this testimony in support of House Bill 197, which calls upon MSDE to create a comprehensive plan for implementing restorative practices in schools. The bill defines restorative practices and outlines requirements for the plan, including establishing training materials and identifying performance metrics. The bill also includes reporting requirements for the department, detailing data collection on student discipline and the use of restorative practices. As a former Maryland middle school teacher and principal, I have seen firsthand the transformation that occurs in a school community when it embraces restorative practices. It is a transformative moment when a child sees for the first time that the adults in their life will continue to support them, even when they have done harm or fallen short. Meaningful life lessons can be taught, and trust and connection can actually grow in these moments. We teach our young people how to write essays, identify equivalent ratios, and give presentations. These are critical academic skills that will serve them well. But just like we can teach mathematics or social studies, we can also teach students how to restore harm they've done, navigate complex emotions, and support a friend through a difficult time. Just imagine what our society could look like a decade from now if the young people in our schools today learned these skills too. Schools do not have to choose between academics or social emotional learning. Restorative practices provide a framework for us to focus on both. The proposed legislation emphasizes the importance of building strong relationships, setting clear expectations, and focusing on repairing harm when violations occur. It seeks to move from a framework of punishment towards a model that prioritizes accountability, restoring harm, and community well-being.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Mary Gable. I am Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Student Support and Federal Programs. We are here to support the bill, House Bill 197, which requires the State Department of Education to create a comprehensive plan for establishing restorative practices schools by the date of July 1, 2026. This plan will provide a framework for local school systems that choose to adopt the model. The plan will include a framework for identifying personnel, as was discussed before, to serve as restorative practices practice coaches, model training materials for those coaches to train other staff, standards for when a school may be designated as a restorative practices school, intended outcomes and performance metrics, including improvements in student conduct, absenteeisms, teacher turnover, mental health, and school climate. The bill also emphasizes that the primary purpose of any disciplinary measure should be rehabilitative, restorative, and educational, by focusing on repairing harm and strengthening relationships rather than simply punishing students. We can create a more supportive and nurturing environment for all students and staff. This approach has the potential to reduce the rate of exclusionary disciplinary actions like suspensions and expulsions and create a more positive climate. From a realistic perspective, a restorative approach will not eliminate all exclusionary discipline actions, but through the attention to a restorative approach and establishing a positive climate throughout the school and in every classroom, the need for more disciplinary approaches will decrease. We know that strong relationships are the foundation for successful learning and that a focus on restorative practices will improve school climate and student well-being. A true restorative school is one that is built on a community, value relationships, and positive culture. Thank you. We urge your support.
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins. Yeah. Oh, is it working now? All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Annika Nambudiri, and I'm a junior in Montgomery County. I'm here today to express my support for House Bill 197, which aims to implement restorative practices in our schools. I'm here today to give you the student perspective. And coming from a school where misbehavior and violence are common, I've seen firsthand how suspensions and expulsions are often used as quick fixes rather than addressing the root causes of these issues. Too often, students at my school and other schools around me are punished without any effort to understand the challenges they face, whether it's struggles at home, peer pressure, or mental health issues. I've seen my peers and classmates fall into a cycle of repeated mistakes, facing the same punishments without the necessary guidance to break free. Restorative practices could be transformative in schools like mine, where cycles of misbehavior often escalate into more serious issues. These practices give students a voice in resolving conflicts and equip them with essential life skills like communication, empathy, and problem solving that foster long-term growth and responsibility. They build relationships and foster accountability while providing students with the help they need. Restorative practices create a safer, more supportive environment for everyone and a culture of respect, understanding, and empathy that benefits all students. By passing House Bill 197, we have the opportunity to create schools where discipline isn't just about punishment, but about growth, accountability, and support. This bill ensures that every student at my school and others across Maryland, regardless of their circumstances, has a fair chance to learn from their mistakes and build the skills that they need to succeed. I urge you to support House Bill 197 and help transform our schools into places that restore students, provide the support they need, and empower them to succeed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Frank Pathnell, and I'm a senior policy advocate with the ACLU of Maryland and a member of the Coalition to Reform School Discipline. We strongly support House Bill 197 with amendments. In recent years, youth behavior and crime has been a big issue here, and we've had a lot of debates about DJS and the courts. Now we have an opportunity to talk about restorative schools, which is a preventative and holistic model for positive childhood development. Most people understand restorative practices as a discipline strategy that uses mediation and restorative circles to address conflicts that arise among students. In my written testimony, I highlight 14 pilot schools in Baltimore City that use this strategy, and it showed significant reductions in suspensions and vastly improved climate and relationships. But this bill goes beyond just the practice of responding to issues when they arise. This bill is about developing a comprehensive plan for restorative practices schools, which is about intentionally working towards building a school culture that is culturally responsive, life-affirming, and that promotes positive identity development and relationships among students within all activities of the school. I've read a study about teachers administering a test to students in a few classrooms. The teacher said, okay, here's the test. or in one group, the teacher said, okay, here's the test. You have an hour and hope you studied this time. In another classroom, the teacher said, okay, here's the test. I know all of you are smart, and I want to see you put your best effort forward. I know you can succeed. Children who received the positive message did much better. And the study was about how bias and how, if not acknowledged and mitigated, it can harm students. We need to think about how many interactions are happening like this every day in schools throughout the whole year, year after year, and how many are serving to build up children versus doing harm. Whether they are Black living in Baltimore neighborhood that has been decimated by decades of disinvestment, or a white student living in rural Dorchester County where industries have disappeared and poverty has taken hold, children are products of their environments and often internalize things that they hear and see, societal messages about who they are and what is expected of them. Sorry, I'm out of time. I just want to end by saying, lastly, the bill only directs MSTE to develop a plan, and we're asking the committee for a favorable vote and an amendment to ensure that the process is transparent and allows for directly impacted school community members to participate. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Gavin Falcone. I'm a sophomore at Long Reach High School in Howard County. Yeah, I'm testifying on behalf of Howard County Association of Student Councils, or otherwise known as HCAST, in my position as First Vice President, to request a favorable report on HB 197, Restorative Practice Schools. Our resolution in support of this bill was voted on unanimously by all elected officials and appointed officer team members, among our student member of the Board of Education, SMOB. HCAST is calling on the Maryland General Assembly to instill comprehensible restorative practices within all Maryland schools, regardless of county. Maryland has always been a state which has prided itself on its education and the environment it provides for us students, but there's always work to still be done. Restorative practices are widely regarded as beneficial for us as students learning, with teachers, administrators, and other faculty and members being involved in the educational process in every form helps to form a deeper level of connection than just the surface. This helps make the educational experience more enjoyable for both students and teachers alike. Additionally, restorative practices, when implemented effectively, improve the overall school climate, leading to less suspensions and even expulsions. For example, when restorative practices were implemented effectively in Oakland Unified School District in California, district-wide suspensions dropped by over 40% in the coming years. Specifically, in HB 197 would benefit Howard County Public Schools because it would instill a guided plan approved by the Maryland Department of Education on how to effectively run such programs. As it stands, many schools in HCPSS, Howard County Public School Systems, only practice an altered version of restorative justice, leading to implementation of leading to lack of discipline needed in certain cases. Through a thorough implementation of restorative practices versus restorative justice, this would allow for students to gain the community and environment benefits restorative practice programs give, but still receive punishment as needed, not being avoided from it. So with that being said, HCAST is in full support of HB 197, and I thank you for your time and have a good day.
Thank you, great job. That's how we do in Howard County. Any questions for this panel? There are some more folks coming. Thank you, and thank you for waiting so long to testify. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you are here, please come forward. Lorena Wu, Ken Phelps Jr., we're supposed to have two virtual. Bradley Laposa. Come on down. What's your name?
My name is Reverend Linda Boyd.
Okay. Have a seat. Have a seat, ma'am. Okay, and whoever would like to start, go right ahead. Make sure, yeah, push the button.
Good afternoon, Chair Arterberry, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Lorena Wu, and I'm a freshman at Poolsville High School in Montgomery County. I'm here in front of you today to testify in support of Bill HB 197 in regards to establishing restorative practices schools. This bill would reform and improve the educational lives of myself, my friends, and my peers throughout our state. Restorative justice and practices, which I have seen implemented since as early as middle school, have incited favorable conflict resolution. I have firsthand seen bullying and fights between youth dissolve as a result of restorative practices, amplifying positive behaviors and creating a more optimistic school experience for students and staff alike. Not only do students, like myself, perceive the benefits of restorative practices, but numbers back the essentialness of restorative practices as well. Suspensions at some schools throughout the nation have been demonstrated to decrease by up to 87%, and arrests, both in and out of schools, have been shown to lower by up to 50%, according to the National Education Association. The basis of many issues between students stem from misinformation and miscommunication. Restorative practices ensure the understanding of both sides and serve as prevention to further problems. It is important to note, however, that restorative practices are just tools in a toolbox used in schools. They must be properly implemented and used in context of other tools, such as mental, physical, and disciplinary measures to ensure the health of youth in schools. Bill HB 197 would push for conflict resolution and the health improvements of students throughout the state. I urge you, distinguished members, to advocate and support this bill, given its importance for Maryland's youth. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. You've had a long afternoon. I'm coming here today representing the Episcopal Diocese of Maryland, but I'm also coming to you as a mother and grandmother and recovering lawyer. I have used restorative practices, also known as mediation, in every aspect of my life. And I have to say, what it does, and I want to sort of explain it because we've heard a lot about it, it maintains the dignity and respect of every party in that transaction. And there's no hierarchy. Each person comes with their interests and positions, but restorative practices take you away from positions to get to your real interests. Like a teacher's real interest is wanting to teach, right? And a student's real interest is wanting to belong, but sometimes belonging may be behavior we don't like. But to treat someone with equal dignity and respect, which we believe every child of God deserves, that is I have found that's the key to maintaining dignity, being heard. People need to be heard, need to be listened to. And this mechanism it works magically almost in almost every transaction I've had, because in litigation, you burn bridges. I'm really strongly opposed to litigation. Don't tell the MSBA I said that. But this mediation maintains the bridges. It maintains communication. You're not talking about right or wrong. You're talking about equal dignity and respect in your positions. I mean, in your interests. So it's a whole different way of approaching our problems that we have at school, but I am here to say that I strongly support it because I've seen it work myself. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Mara Babb. I am a student from Anne Arundel County. I serve as the State Legislative Affairs Coordinator for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, or MASC. On behalf of MASC, I request a favorable report on House Bill 197. The Maryland Association of Student Councils is a youth-led organization composed of secondary school students across the state, advocating for the best interest of all Maryland students. MASC calls on the General Assembly to support restorative practices within Maryland schools by passing House Bill 197. The restorative practices plan outlined by the State Department of Education would allow for the uniform implementation of such practices into Maryland schools. This plan moves away from traditionally punitive disciplinary approaches and gives students the tools they need to succeed both in and outside of the classroom. As a State Legislative Affairs Coordinator for MASC and an involved student advocate, I have seen the positive impact that restorative practices can have on students, corroborated by academic research. According to the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, restorative practices address the root of behavioral issues by tending to students' socio-emotional needs, focusing on the causation between personal life and outward behavior. Moreover, a study conducted by the University of Chicago Education Lab found that the Chicago public schools, upon implementing restorative practices, saw a 35% reduction in school arrest, significant decreases in violent and nonviolent offenses, and an improvement in the school environment. The restorative practices plan will uplift students throughout the state and empower them to lead fulfilling and content lives free from the burden of harsh discipline. Accordingly, MASC requests a favorable report on House Bill 197 from the committee. Thank you for your time.
Is there the only name I did not call is Janet Lane? Is there a Janet Lane in here? Okay, are there any questions for anyone on this panel? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Do we have two folks in here virtually, Logan Endow or Nikomar Mosley? No, okay. We do have then one more person signed up as unfavorable, Charlamar Douglas. Okay, they are not here, then that ends the hearing on House Bill 197. Thank you very much. Okay, last bill of the day, Delegate Vogel, House Bill 72. And who would you like to bring up with you?
No, stop. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, committee members, despite all the high schoolers who have been here today, I am not a high schooler. I am a fellow delegate. And I am here with House Bill 72. And I'll wait for my pen. Who else is joining us? We got, hello. So House Bill 72 recognizes that our democracy's longevity really depends on the civic engagement of young people. I first got engaged in civics, engaged in politics, engaged in public service when I was in high school. Maybe you all would be grateful if I weren't here, but I would not be here today if it weren't for that early civic engagement. And really, it has changed my life in profound ways. It is changing the lives of so many young people across our state who choose to get engaged in their communities, choose to serve their communities, choose to go out and register voters and engage in our democracy in so many important ways. And not only is that having a positive impact in their communities right now, but it is creating lifelong engaged civic advocates that will make our democracy stronger for generations to come. So what we're doing with this bill is creating the Maryland Civic Excellence Program. And the first thing I'll acknowledge right off the bat is that if you look at the fiscal note, there is no fiscal note. There is no expenditures to the state because the Maryland State Department of Education, which supports this legislation, has said that they can enact the provisions of this legislation without any additional expenditures. So if, and everything is detailed both in the fiscal note and in my written testimony, so I won't go into it in detail since we have some folks here to testify as well. Once you meet certain criteria as an individual, which includes a number of service hours, which students are already required to obtain, but 30 of those hours need to be focused on civic action. And taking several courses, you receive a designation of civic excellence. Schools that meet a certain criteria, having a number of students that a threshold of students that meet this criteria also receive a designation as well, a Center of Civic Excellence designation. There are a number of other states that have already enacted legislation like this. And I will note that this bill has support from MSDE, which I noted earlier. It has support from the Maryland State Education Association, and something that I'm very excited about. It has support from the Department of Service and Civic Innovation. I think the secretary is right to my left. So I will let him share why he feels this bill is so important as well. And I will turn it over to this incredible panel. Thank you.
Ooh, is this your first time here in Ways and Means?
I was here last session, but.
Okay, but this is your first time this session.
Oh. Thank you.
And we appreciate your patience. We know that you've been here, so we thank you very much. We appreciate that.
I appreciate your time. I know you have some serious issues before the committee. So, Madam Chairwoman, Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Paul Montero, the Secretary for the Department of Service and Civic Innovation. I'm here to express my strong support for House Bill 72. In an era where civic engagement is more crucial than ever, this bill provides an opportunity to foster a deeper understanding of civic duties among our students. By recognizing and rewarding schools and students who excel in promoting civic readiness, we set a standard for others to aspire to and begin to address the erosion of social capital we've seen across too many communities. This program's voluntary nature allows local schools and systems to participate without a mandate, ensuring flexibility and local control. Moreover, the requirement for participating schools to submit annual reports to the Department of Education ensures accountability. By passing HB 72, we take a significant step forward toward preparing our youth to be informed, engaged, and responsible members of our communities. I urge the committee to give the bill a favorable report. Thank you very much.
Hello again. Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee. Once again, my name is Gavin Falcone. I'm a sophomore at Long Ridge High School in Howard County, and I'm representing HCAST, Howard County Association of Student Councils, as my position as First Vice President, and to support a favorable stance on Bill HB 52, Maryland Civic Excellence Program. Our resolution in support of this bill was once again voted upon all elected officials and appointed officer team members among our SPOB student member of the Board of Education. HCAST is asking the Maryland General Assembly to promote the uplifting of civic engagement within our schools, fostering leadership in us as students and youth through the passing of this bill. As many of you know, we always do better when we have that little extra incentive, whether it's money, cash, candy, or in this case, something that's free, recognition. And the same recognition would come as a reward or honor given to schools or individuals who promote and are engaged in the civic process. Students and teachers alike would benefit from this by simply wanting to be motivated to get this reward, more or less. Wanting to know that what they're doing is actually making an impact in their community and it does not go unnoticed. Causing more students to get involved in the civic process at a younger age, making them more likely to stay involved for life. Additionally, the Maryland Civic Excellence Program would benefit many counties and many students who aren't already involved at the state level. Speaking towards Howard County, this would benefit us drastically, with, as it stands, little to no students coming to the state level, with me being one of the first students representing HCAST in the last couple of years. Through the passing of this bill, we could help change that, get more voices at the state level and more viewpoints and perspectives heard, something in which several states across the nation have already begun to do so themselves. So I'm happy to say HCAST is in full support of HB 72, and I want to thank everybody here today, specifically all my fellow students, all the Howard County delegates, and Mr. Hunter Craig in the back for coaching and judging speech and debate. Have a good day.
Yeah, Hunter.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of House Bill 72, a bill that will strengthen our shared democracy's future. My name is Lena Morielli Scott. I'm the director of the Civic Education and Engagement Initiative for the College of Education and the principal investigator for the Interdisciplinary Maryland Democracy Initiative at the University of Maryland. I'm also the co-chair and co-founder of the State Maryland Civic Education Coalition. You'll hear from some of the students who are part of our coalition in a few moments. I've worked in the field of civic education for more than 35 years here in Maryland's public schools and in nonprofits. And like you, I'm sure that we share an understanding that one of the most fundamental ways to strengthen our shared democracy is through meaningful, equitable, and high-quality civic education. As you know, an informed and engaged citizenry is essential to representative democracy, responsive government, and strong communities. As I've shared in my written testimony, we have reasons to be concerned that so many Americans lack essential civic knowledge and skills such as consensus building, information, and media literacy. And we know that K-12 social studies instruction has been marginalized to terrible effect. We also know good news, that when students do participate in high-quality civics, they are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and experiences to participate successfully, and they have agency, the belief that their participation matters. Service learning is one of the proven practices in civic education, and we believe that HB 72 will catalyze students' positive experiences with service learning for lifelong service, a priority of the Moore administration. The University of Maryland, our coalition, and we stand ready to partner with MSDE to support school districts in developing this program. I strongly urge favorable support of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and esteemed committee members. My name is Jeannie Massey. I live in Washington County, and I work with the Maryland Civic Education Coalition. We believe this initiative is crucial for shaping the next generation of informed and engaged citizens. We can all see in this room today that Maryland has some of the best students, some of the most engaged, most informed students. Many of them spoke before you today. Unfortunately, as your discussion of cell phones and fights in schools are evidence, not all students in Maryland are high flyers like these kids are. We want to change that. We want to encourage more engagement, more civic knowledge. We want parents and community members to celebrate more and more students who contribute to the common good. The Seal of Civic Excellence will help cultivate a generation of informed, responsible citizens who understand their rights, advocate for justice, and actively contribute to their communities. By fostering civic engagement, students will gain the ability to address global challenges and better understand the ethical, social, and political contexts that shape their impact on society. In conclusion, I urge the committee to support HB 72. This program will ensure Maryland's future leaders are informed, engaged, and ready to contribute to the common good. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this panel? Okay, seeing none, thank you all very much. Thank you for your time, especially thank you to our students. Next, Jeannie Massey. Or no, yep, that was you. Yep, I'm crossing that off. Lorena Wu, William Andrione, Marshall Friedman, Ella Wan, Alina Malik, okay, we'll stop there. Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we start with Alina and just work our way down?
Dear Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and distinguished committee members, my name is Alina Malik, and I'm a resident of Anne Arundel County, and I'm writing to express my strong support for House Bill 72, which seeks to establish the Maryland Seal of Civic Excellence program. Research from the Tufts Circle, one reason to focus on youth civic engagement is that such participation is a habit like no other. Starting early can form a habit of civic engagement that will last a lifetime. When all young people develop healthy civic habits, skills, and commitment, our democracy will prosper. Not only creating healthy civic habits, but research demonstrates that involving oneself in civic engagement enhances mental well-being and increases empathy, pushing one to serve their communities more. As a high school student battling a mental illness, feeling no purpose within my school or academics, a wise teacher once encouraged me to volunteer and that I had all the potential to make a difference if only I opened my eyes to the issues around me. This eye-opening perspective led to me to do service and civics, where I saw a decrease within civic education application within my peers and community, causing civic education, empathy, service learning, and the spark of civic duty to decrease as well. This recognition program is imperative in spotlighting students and to reignite that spark to not only perform one-time acts of voting, however, into creating long-lasting impacts that will transform the youth into the democratic leaders of tomorrow. As our democracy unravels day by day, we must allow the youth to prosper in civic engagement to tackle severe issues affecting them every day. In conclusion, House Bill 72 will provide the foundation for the youth of Maryland to flourish. Their civic duty will increase, and they will be pushed towards preserving our democracy starting in high school. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and the members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Ella Wan, and I'm the president of the Montgomery County Junior Council, and I support House Bill 72, which would establish the Maryland Civic Excellence Program. As a student who has been actively engaged in civic programs throughout my educational career, I've seen firsthand the transformative impact civic engagement can have on students, schools, and communities. This program is a much-needed step towards creating a future where every student in Maryland is equipped with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to make real contributions to their communities. Last year, I had the privilege of presenting at the Montgomery County Public Schools Next Generation Leadership Day. This event empowered over 400 fourth and fifth graders with the tools to become better leaders and introduce them to the world of student advocacy. Watching these students, some as young as 9 years old, speak up about issues they cared about and brainstorm solutions was nothing short of inspiring. It was a vivid reminder that civic engagement is not just for adults. It starts in classrooms and grows with opportunities just like this. Programs like the Maryland Civic Excellence Program would institutionalize these life-changing experiences by encouraging schools to prioritize civic readiness and by recognizing students in schools that excel in this area. I can also attest to how programs like this foster a stronger sense of community. When I've worked with my peers on civic projects, I've seen how collective action strengthens bonds, teaches empathy, and inspires leadership. By designating schools as centers of civic excellence, this program incentivizes educators to integrate civics into their curriculum and culture, ensuring that every student, regardless of their background, has access to these vital experiences. This bill is more than just a piece of legislation. It's a promise. It's a promise to Maryland students that their voices matter, their efforts are seen, and their future is supported. I urge this committee to pass a favorable report on House Bill 72 to invest in the civic readiness of Maryland's next generation. I yield my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, Chair Arterberry, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. Once more, my name is Lorena Wu, and I'm a freshman at Poolesville High School, and I'm here to testify in support of Bill HB 72, which discusses the creation of a Maryland Civic Excellence Program that would recognize civically ready students and schools, which is a bill vital to the youth of the state. Throughout my time in elementary school, my teachers acknowledged me as a leader, and this pushed me to run for my school's Student Government Association president. As trivial as it sounds now, this was the beginning of my advocacy journey. Now I am involved in county and statewide organizations, including the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. This, in turn, has led me here today in front of you all, Maryland General Assembly delegates. My experience aligns with those of my peers, as shown by fellow students sitting next to me. And nationally, 71% of youth ages 14 to 17 report being civically involved, according to the AAMC Center for Health Justice. Having the Maryland Civic Excellence Program, which would provide an achievement for students through the presentation of the Seal of Civic Excellence and a feat for schools through the establishment of a Center for Civic Excellence, would recognize these students and schools who are civically engaged and prepared for the future. However, that leaves 29% of youth unengaged, which is approximately a third of our population. This is a fragment, a third of our future population, unaware of the importance of politics and governmental procedures. Creating the Maryland Civic Excellence Program would incentivize these students to throw themselves into civic activities, whether that's lobbying or volunteering, and schools to implement a more civically based curriculum, leading to a better tomorrow. Bill HB 72 would propel the civic readiness of Maryland's youth. I urge you, esteemed members, to continue to advocate and push for this bill, given its utmost significance. Thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Marshall Friedman, and I am a sophomore student from Poolesville High School. I'm here today to support House Bill 72 and the Maryland Civic Excellence Program. I believe that the first step to creating meaningful change is through education. By rewarding students in schools for fostering civic engagement, we are rewarding education and our students' dedication to a healthy democracy. Youth participation in our democracy is at an all-time low. While in my student advocacy work, I work with many highly engaged youth, there is still too much apathy and indifference to the issues that matter. Meanwhile, the political landscape is not waiting for us to catch up. As a queer student and environmental advocate, I feel that sentiment now more than ever. In the last few weeks and days, we have seen policy that negatively impacts each of us, students or otherwise. Now is the time for a program like this. If we were not civically engaged before, this is the time to join with others for the common good. Without the foundation of civic engagement, how can tomorrow's leaders rise above and create a better society? Delegate Vogel's Civic Excellence Program would be a crucial addition to our schools. Whether through policy, volunteering, or even a vote, this program would foster a community of students who care and are willing to stand up for what they believe in. Now more than ever, we must encourage students to use their voices and to speak up. Lastly, within my last 2 years of high school, it has been my school community, my peers, and my teachers who have taught me to stand up for what I believe in. This program will lift up the work of schools and students who are trying to improve our communities. When I spoke to my peers after the election, many of them felt trapped and scared in their situation. This program would remind the student body that there is a way to take meaningful action through civic engagement. Distinguished members of the Maryland General Assembly and the Ways and Means Committee, I urge you to support this bill that need it now more than ever. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Will Andrioni, and I'm a junior at Severna Park High School in Anne Arundel County, and I'm here today with the Maryland Civic Education Coalition in support of House Bill 72. As the Civic Engagement Coordinator for CRESC, that being Anne Arundel County's regional student government, as well as a local policy director for the American Youth Association, I've seen firsthand the importance that civics plays in shaping an active and engaged youth. But I also see how much we're lacking in that youth civic engagement. But by offering these extrinsic motivations, that being the seal of civic excellence, this bill will encourage students to explore civics and service, often sparking a lifelong passion. I mean, I know this firsthand. Me personally, my first step in civics was the 2024 primary election as an election judge. And my extrinsic motivation was the judge's paycheck. And I will say it's a pretty nice paycheck. But learning about the candidates and engaging with people who are already enshrined in civics really made something click in me, and it sparked something with me. So now I'm passionate about civics. I'm passionate about engaging my community, passionate about staying informed on local, state, and national politics. But I've also seen how this is not an isolated situation. When we give students and the youth a reason to want to engage in civics, we have seen, and we will continue to see, students deepen their involvement. If you want to create a new generation of leaders and students to engage in their communities, it starts with House Bill 72. A favorable report for House Bill 72 is one to empower our students, one to inspire our schools, and one to invest in the future leaders of our county, state, and nation. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for this panel? Okay, thank you very much. We have a couple more folks signed up. Alexander Allen, Spencer Knoll, and Mara Babb. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Ways and Means Committee members. My name is Alexander Allen, and I'm a senior at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School in Montgomery County, Maryland. As the SJ president of my school, I always get asked, what can I do to earn more student service learning hours? However, these students aren't asking because they don't have the 75 hours required to graduate. They want one of the rarer awards gifted by my county and MSTE, the Certificate of Meritorious Service. This award is given to students who earn more than 240 service hours before they graduate high school, and it leads many students to continue to give back to their community past the 75-hour graduation requirement. Now imagine how many more students would be here today, meeting with legislators, testifying on bills, and learning more about how laws are formed in Maryland if they could receive a cord, medal, or even just a marking on their diploma that represents their accomplishments outside of the classroom. We must encourage schools to promote civic engagement opportunities and remind students they are part of the political system. Many of my peers did not know they had state legislators outside of Congress, let alone they could contact them. Whether students complete it or not, a civic excellence program at schools reminds students they play an essential role in our government, even before they can vote. The future committee members in this room, your district's future delegates, and the next leaders of Maryland are currently in one of our over 1,400 public schools. Most likely, they have never heard about the Maryland General Assembly, think politics is full of arguments and division, and have never been encouraged to advocate in their community or testify at their local school board hearing. These are the students that this program focuses on, and are why I urge you to support HB 72 to show that civic engagement is not something we only accept as a state, but encourage in our youth. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Atterbury, Vice Chair Wilkins, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Mara Babb, and I am a student from Anne Arundel County. I serve as a State Legislative Affairs Coordinator for the Maryland Association of Student Councils, or MASC. On behalf of MASC, we request a favorable report on House Bill 72. I would like to reiterate the sentiments of my colleagues, so I'll keep this short and sweet. We've passed a resolution in favor of this bill, voted on by a delegation of MASC's elected and appointed officials, regional student government presidents, and student members on boards of education across the state. Additionally, MASC has exhibited unanimous support of the Maryland Civic Excellence Program during the 2024 legislative session and MASC's statewide convention conference. MASC serves as an outlet for student leadership, civil discourse, and youth empowerment. The Civic Excellence Program will uplift organizations like MASC to promote civic opportunities for young people. Not to mention, civic readiness is vital for students to learn about their local government, which will empower students to uplift their communities. Accordingly, MASC requests a favorable report on House Bill 72 from the committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone, I believe I have called on everyone. Okay, are there any questions for these two young folks? Thank you very much. Before I conclude the hearing, well, you can step back, but before I conclude the hearing, I just want to say, first of all, thank you all to the students that came here to testify today. It is really important. I think you made some of the folks here want to step up their game when they testify. But we absolutely appreciate it, and we listen to you, and we take what you say very seriously. And I saw some folks trying to videotape it. You can go on our YouTube channel and get your clip and put it up on your socials or whatever. I also, that made me sound super old. Yeah. So, Delegate Young is like, I want to thank your parents and your family, or your supervisors, whoever brought you down here. Thank you. It was a very long day. We really appreciate it. With that concludes the hearing on House Bill 72, and that concludes the Ways and Means hearings for today. Thank you.